1041. Broken Bee. Hey, it's so touched. Naruto, you are so good. Lisa is grateful when he is grateful, and the body shakes to sit up. Hey, don't get excited, okay, you are a patient now, you need to rest well. Naruto quickly pressed her down. Naruto, thank you for saving Nanao. If something happens to Nanao, I will feel guilty for the rest of my life. Lisa, who was covered in bandages, looked at Naruto and said gratefully. Nanao is also my classmate and friend, I will save her even if you don't tell me. Naruto felt relieved when she saw that she was in good spirits, and after a few chats, he planned to leave. You have a good rest, I'll go back to the second division first. Naruto made the quilt for her, stood up and went out. Naruto, I owe you a favor this time, and I will definitely find a chance to repay you next time. Lisa shouted. As you like. Naruto waved his hand with a smile and left the 8th division. Along the way, Captain Chunshui sent him away in person, chatted a few words with him, and asked some questions about how to rescue Nanao. Naruto only said that he escaped the pursuit of the group at a very dangerous speed and did the process as not described in detail. After all, he still doesn't know who is targeting him, so he must not disclose information at will. After returning to the second division, Naruto calmed down and began to think about what he encountered in the virtual circle. Those people grabbed Nanao in order to lure themselves, and they still directly confronted Balagang. Balagang's power is definitely much stronger than the general captain level, and his spiritual pressure is only up to 100%. At the captain level, even if Shikai's power is exposed, it will at most only be able to fight against Balagang. So does the designer of this conspiracy want to kill himself? After thinking about it, he could only think of this guy Aizen. It is almost impossible for other people in the virtual circle to lay such a trap on a god of death that has nothing to do with them. Among the gods of death in the corpse soul world, it is possible to connect with the virtual circle, and only Aizen is the only one. It seems that he is already in contact with the virtual circle now. It can be seen that his strength is already extraordinary, not his current self. Able to kill. That being the case, we can only be more careful with him in the future. Also, improving your strength as soon as possible is the most important thing. After this incident, Naruto's pursuit of power is even more urgent. If his power is not enough, he can only be reduced to a pawn at the mercy of others. Therefore, in the next period of time, Naruto used the resources in his hand to start a frantic cultivation. Before I knew it, 3 months had passed. In the past 3 months, in addition to completing some tasks assigned by Yi, Naruto only had time to read books and practice, and even had very little time to visit Luanju and Feijun. However, his progress is not small. With his current strength, there is a trend of not losing to Yi in terms of speed. On this day, Naruto was practicing in the courtyard. At this moment, Yi walked in from the door with a faint smile on his face. Naruto, now I have something very important to tell you. Naruto stopped practicing and looked at Yi, only to find that there was a thin girl next to her, dressed in a black death costume, respectfully following Yi. The girl looked 14 or 15 years old, with a thin body, with short ear-length hair and a braid of bells and snakes. She had a pretty face and had a cold aristocratic temperament. This is Broken Bee. She will be a member of the Shinjun of the 2nd Division in the future. I will give her the 4th seat. You can take care of her in the future. Broken Bee. Naruto was stunned for a moment, with a smile on his face. Hello, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the 3rd seat of the 2nd Division, please take care of me. Bumblebee stepped forward, looked at Naruto carefully, and found that there was nothing special about him, so he nodded lightly, take care of him. After speaking, he immediately returned to Yi's side and stopped looking at him. Yi smiled bitterly. Broken Bee is like this, Naruto, don't mind, I treat her like a younger sister, and her personal ability is also very strong. I am usually very busy, as the 3rd seat, you have to work together in the future, and you have to let her go. Naruto nodded. He wouldn't care about Broken Bee's reaction to him, but now he was thinking about something else. That is, Yaiki will betray with Urahara Kazuki and the other captains and vice-captains from the Soul Society soon. He knows the truth about this matter. Should he stop it? However, the strength of the Black Hand behind the scenes is already very strong, and he is very cautious in his actions. I am afraid that he will be beaten up by then. After all, his foundation in the soul world is also very thin. For a period of time, I have absorbed the knowledge here to grow like crazy. Forget it, only strength is the most fundamental. Without strength, everything is difficult to say. Conspiracy, let it continue. What I have to do now is to become stronger as soon as possible, strong enough to overthrow all conspiracy and tricks. Naruto. Yi saw that he was in a trance and couldn't help calling him again. Broken Bee frowned slightly. This third seat seemed to have no respect for Lord Yi, and when Lord Yi talked to him, he was still in a trance. How could such a person be the third seat? How dare you offend the majesty of Lord Yi? Such a person is really hateful. Broken Bee was secretly dissatisfied. However, Naruto was one level higher than Broken Bee no matter what, so he didn't say anything, but in his heart he was already classified as a hated person. Naruto didn't know at all that his unintentional thinking about future events had offended Shuibe. After Yi Yi's reminder, he nodded, looked at Shuibe and said with a smile, "Get along well in the future." The Broken Bee snorted softly and ignored him. Forehead. Naruto's expression froze, and Yaiki couldn't help but be stunned. Smashed Bee, Naruto is older than you, and he is also your superior. You were wrong. She touched Yi Yi's head and said indulgently. Shattered Bee's little face gave a slight yuhi, and then nodded to Naruto. Okay, I just have a job for the two of you now. There are some documents in room 3 to deal with. I think you should go to work together first. Remember to get along well. Yi pushed the Broken Bee to Naruto, took the opportunity to let the two handle the affairs of the squad. 1042. Broken Bee's Perseverance. After sending the two away, Yi Yi let out a long breath. Broken Bee doesn't seem to deal with Naruto very much. Hey, this is really troublesome. Both of them are people that they care about very much. If there is any conflict, it will be bad. Seeing the two walking towards the team building, Yi Yi was secretly worried. At this time, Naruto and Broken Bee were walking in the corridors one after the other. Naruto felt that Brogue's gaze behind him seemed to be locked tightly on him, but as soon as he turned his head, he found that she had turned her head to look elsewhere. For a time, the atmosphere was a little weird. However, Naruto is still a strong man who has experienced the vicissitudes of life, so there is still a way to deal with this little girl. Since she looks like she hates her appearance, then she might as well treat her as heir. Thinking of this, Naruto hummed a song leisurely, walked from the corridor to room 3, and started processing documents. Broken Bee also sat down, and the two sat together to divide the labor. She didn't say a word, and Naruto didn't speak either. Continue to work on the text. However, Naruto looked at her several times before he stopped talking, as if he wanted to say something. However, when he was close to speaking, he swallowed the words back. Although Naruto didn't know what she was going to say, he felt that she was really cute like this, completely different from the noble and glamorous captain in his impression. After a while, Brogue finally couldn't help it, and was the first to speak. Uzumaki Naruto, how did you meet Master Yi? Naruto was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect her to ask such a question. He smiled and said, "We have known each other a long time ago." A long time ago? When was that? Broken Bee asked immediately. Seeing her curious and concerned look, Naruto laughed secretly in his heart. It seems that Broken Bee is really concerned about Yi Yi, and his admiration for her is almost crazy. Naruto suddenly smiled and said, "Go ask Yi Yi." Broken Bee was stunned for a moment, and suddenly she angrily said, "I want to call Master Yi." It's right to call it that in front of outsiders, but Yaiki and I are very good friends, so it's normal to call it that. Naruto smiled lightly. He didn't know that just because of his name for Yi, it had already caused strong dissatisfaction in Broken Bee's heart. Lord Yi is the captain of the 2nd Division and the head of the Sifeng family, one of the 4 great nobles. He is an unattainable big man, how could he be called by his first name? She stared at Naruto angrily and said angrily, Uzumaki Naruto, I warn you, I will call you Lord Yi in the future. Naruto couldn't help being stunned, and then asked strangely, what does this have to do with it? Yaiki and I are good friends, so we won't mind each other about this kind of thing. However, Shubi suddenly became angry. She stood up with a swoosh, and the documents in her hands were scattered all over the place. She stretched out her slender jade finger, pointed at Naruto's nose and shouted, me and Yaiki, Uzumaki Naruto, I hate you the most. You say it as if you have a good relationship with Yasuma. You can disrespect Yasuma just because of this kind of thing, is it? You bloody bastard, I don't want to work with you. After she finished speaking angrily, her figure flashed and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Naruto froze in place, feeling very inexplicable in his heart. He didn't understand at all that Broken Bee would quarrel with him because of this kind of thing, and point at his nose to scold him. What is this girl thinking about? Even if she and Yi were very close, and her words were a little more casual, she shouldn't be so excited. Could it be that this girl regards Yi as her own ban, and can't allow anyone to touch it? This is really bad. It seems that there will be a lot of trouble for a girl with such a problem to stay by her side in the future. Naruto smiled wryly, shook his head, and had no choice but to leave her alone for now and finish the task. The next day, Naruto was still training. Also training with Naruto is Smash Bee. Because Broken Bee became the 4th seat, and was also a member of Xingjun. Like Naruto, he was a member of Yi's direct escort team. Therefore, the yard where the two usually live is very close. Due to Yi's instructions, Brobe has to come and train with Naruto. However, she was obviously very reluctant, and seemed to be very disgusted with Naruto, a man who was very close to Yaiki. Swish! Suddenly, the Broken Bees, who were practicing separately, suddenly appeared behind Naruto, lifted their legs and kicked Naruto's ass. Naruto was slightly startled. He had been cultivating well, but he didn't expect that Broken Bee would suddenly attack. It seemed that this girl was very upset by herself, so was she taking the opportunity to make fun of herself. Hey! Does she really think she is a sick cat? Naruto sneered, turned around suddenly, stretched out his hand, and a delicate calf was already held in the palm of his hand. Bro, what are you doing? Naruto squeezed her calf tightly. Although she was wearing trousers on her calf, Naruto could still feel the delicate skin of the girl through the trouser legs. Soft, slender, like a weak willow. But this was obviously an illusion. Broken Bee was not only not weak, but also strong. The moment she was caught by Naruto on her calf, she immediately reacted and raised a slender jade finger and aimed it at Naruto's face. Broken Down number 4, by Lei. Boom. In the next instant, a thunderlight as thick as an arm slammed into Naruto's face. So cruel. Naruto tilted his head slightly, and immediately avoided the opponent's attack. The thunderlight landed on the ground with a bang, blasting a big pit, and the dust was flying. Naruto frowned secretly. This girl really deserves a fight. Then he suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist. Broken Bee was shocked. She didn't expect Naruto's strength to be so powerful. She thought she was already very good in the 2nd division, so she wanted to punish him. Now it seems that she is too naive. As soon as Naruto entered the 2nd team, he became the 3rd seat. How could he have no means? It's just that it was too late when she thought about it, because Naruto yanked her arm in an instant and buckled her behind her back. Broken Bee couldn't help groaning, and turned to stare at Naruto angrily and unwillingly. Let go of me. Naruto smiled and said, let go of you. You attacked me for no reason, and you want me to let go when you are caught. It's not that easy. 1043. Shame and indignant. Then what do you think? Broken Bee glared at him arrogantly and called. Naruto smiled. If you do something wrong, you must apologize. Apologize to me first. Humph. I don't want it. Broken Bee turned his head away, snorted coldly and ignored him. Naruto frowned slightly. This girl is really disobedient to discipline. She attacked herself for no reason, and even attacked herself with heavy hands. Not only that, but after being subdued, she did not repent at all. If I let her go on like this, wouldn't I be in trouble in the future? If she reaches a critical moment in her cultivation and suddenly makes a sneak attack, wouldn't it be a tragedy? Thinking of this, Naruto couldn't help but feel a fire in his heart, and said coldly, "You still don't know how to repent." Hearing Naruto's chilling tone, Shattered Bee's heart shuddered slightly, but she hated her so much now. Where would she admit defeat? She still turned her head and said nothing, and snorted from her nose to show her dissatisfaction. Naruto frowned, and suddenly raised his slap and slapped it on Shubi's sweet buttocks. In an instant, the crisp sound echoed in the courtyard, and the Broken Bee trembled, and her expression couldn't help being stunned. Ah! Then, an earth-shattering scream rang out, accompanied by a strong spiritual pressure. Naruto was directly shocked by the spiritual pressure, took a step backwards, and was freed by her. "You bastard! How dare you hit me in such a place? Damn it, I'm going to kill you." Broken Bee looked ashamed and angry, and her tender face rose to Yuhi, accompanied by the skyrocketing Reiki. To kill all the enemies. Sparrow bees. She went straight into the Shikai state, and saw the Zanpakuto in her hand emit a burst of light, then turned into a sharp finger cuff wrapped around the back of her hand. Immediately afterwards, Broken Bee burst out with a white spiritual pressure, and the entire courtyard was almost destroyed by this spiritual pressure. Boom! Her body rushed towards Naruto like a shooting star, and the bees on her fingertips flashed a frightening cold light. 2 hit kills. Her fingers pointed towards Naruto's body, and the shadow of her hand almost turned into an afterimage, causing a violent whirlwind of spiritual power. It was just a spanking of her butt, which was actually the same as killing her father's enemy. While retreating, Naruto's hands were not slow, and he waved again and again, blocking all the attacks of the bees. The current Broken Bee, although it is Shikai, is still unable to compare with Naruto in terms of strength. Even Smash Bee's white attack is very powerful and the speed is very fast, but no matter how powerful it is, it can't match Naruto's captain-level Reiatsu, as well as his fighting experience and skills from several worlds. Damn it, I'm going to kill you. Shobei cursed furiously, and with all his strength he attacked Naruto with all his strength, and the radiance of the Reiatsu made the other death gods in the vicinity of the second division also pay attention. Hey, what happened in the second division's quarters? Why does it seem like there is a fierce battle? You don't have to be so serious about training, right? This may not be the case. The second team is an amazing team. Hey, have you had enough? Naruto shouted while resisting the all-out attack of the Broken Bees. It's just a slap in the ass. Why is there such a big reaction? I want you to apologize. And say it, but after saying it, the Broken Bee was even more ashamed and angry. Since he was a child, although he was only a low-level noble, no one dared to hit his ass. I was actually spanked by the guy the first hated the most. Stock. She even felt that her body was defiled, and she only wanted to kill the hateful man in front of her. Shut up. Shubi was furious. She poured her whole body Reiki into her fingertips, and stabbed Naruto's chest fiercely. Seeing this, Naruto was also a little impatient. The little girl has to have a limit if she wants to make trouble. It seems that the lesson for such an unreasonable guy is still light. Looking at the rapidly approaching Broken Bee, Naruto suddenly swayed, and in the next instant, he appeared directly behind her, stretched out his feet, and swayed slightly. Broken Bee's body staggered forward, and then Naruto stretched out his hands together, grabbed her waistband directly, and lifted her in midair like a kitten. Let go of me. Let me go. Broken Bee struggled hard. She didn't expect that she would use all her strength, even Shikai, but she was not this man's opponent, and she was even defeated by him with just a few moves. How strong is this guy? This is definitely not the strength that the third seat can have. Not even a vice captain can reach such a level. At this moment, she was shocked and angry, struggling with all her strength, and suddenly, with a soft sound, Naruto suddenly loosened the waistband of the trousers that Naruto was holding onto the bee. On the ground. Naruto was still holding her trousers belt in his hand, stunned. Immediately afterwards, Broken Bee just stood up, and all the clothes on his body were scattered on the ground. Suddenly, Naruto saw that she was completely naked. Bumblebee noticed that her body was cold, and stared at Naruto in a daze. Thin, white and tender skin, petite and exquisite figure, the little hill bulging on the chest, there are bright spots on it, just like the flower bones waiting to bloom, green and full of vitality. At this moment, she seemed to be stunned. She actually stood there motionless, stunned for a few seconds, and finally let out an earth-shattering scream from her mouth, then squatted down, picked up her clothes, and ran into the next room. A jade face Yuhi almost dripping water. Naruto just came back to his senses, and he was still holding the trousers belt of Broken Bee in his hand. This is really troublesome. She accidentally pulled the belt off, and looked at her body all over again. It was such a big reaction when she just hit her ass before. Wouldn't it make Tenten think about killing him more in the future? He covered his forehead and sighed involuntarily. 1044. Emergencies. The next day. Naruto is still training in the courtyard. At this time, the Broken Bee suddenly came over with an expressionless face. Coldly said, "Give me back the belt." Huh. Naruto was stunned for a moment, then immediately spread his hands. "I threw it away." "You." Broken Bee was instantly furious. "Haha, just kidding, I put it on the windowsill of your room." Naruto laughed. After a day, the girl didn't even shout that she was going to kill herself. Seeing her expressionless face, Naruto felt a little uneasy. Broken Bee snorted coldly and turned to leave. Naruto smiled slightly and continued training. At this time, in the 5th Division team building, Aizen was holding a report in his hand, looking at it carefully. After reading it, he couldn't help muttering, "Uzumaki Naruto, you can actually come back from the virtual circle, you are really hidden." Beside him, there was a silver-haired boy. After reading the report, Aizen turned to look at him and said, "Silver, after a while, you can go to Junyang Spiritual Arts Academy. With your qualifications, definitely get into the Class A freshman class." Quote. "Yes, thank you Aizen-sama." The silver-haired boy smiled slightly. True Central Spiritual Arts Academy. Faye is really learning the basics in an orderly manner. For her, every minute and second is very precious now. Compared with the days in Liuhun Street, how happy and beautiful it is now. However, she still has a wish in her heart, that is, to graduate from the True Spiritual Arts Academy as soon as possible, and then join Naruto-sama's squad, so that Tenten can meet him. The current Naruto must be busy with teamwork and training. He hasn't come to see himself for several days. After doing the math, according to the previous rules, he should come to visit him today. At that time, he must perform well and show him his progress these days. Thinking like this, a smile appeared on Feijun's face, which was as beautiful as a blooming flower. The day's course is finally over. Feijun still stayed in the academy to continue training. In order to catch up in Naruto-sama's footsteps, she must become stronger. Even if his talent is only very ordinary, even if he can only follow behind and watch his back forever, he must move forward. The 31 Scarlet Artillery. Feijun had fine beads of sweat on her face, and a faint light ball of spiritual power appeared in her palms. She tried her best to control her own spiritual power and wanted to launch it. A more powerful red artillery cannon, but the spiritual power she is currently master is emitting a size that can only be used for lighting. After a slight sigh, Feijun did not give up, but continued to train. When the sweat slipped down her smooth and delicate cheeks, and when the spiritual power in her body was drained over and over again, she still did not give up. Not far away, Naruto stood on the roof of the academy, watching Higen training from a distance. What a stubborn girl, this effort is simply distressing. However, Naruto didn't bother her, but quietly watched her training. Feijun, who worked so hard, her persistence and perseverance looked really beautiful. Suddenly, Feijun groaned and stumbled to the ground. The body is out of strength. Naruto hurriedly appeared in front of her in a blink of an eye, hugging her frail body in his arms. Lord Naruto, you're here. A hint of surprise appeared on Feijun's face. Why do you have to work so hard? With your current spiritual power, it's too hard to do so much training. Naruto said in a slightly reproachful tone. Feijun leaned on Naruto's arms and smiled at you with peace of mind. Naruto-sama, I will not stop following in your footsteps. I want to graduate as soon as possible and become a real god of death, hold Zanpakuto and fight with you. Hey, really, there will be time in the future. With your spiritual power, although your talent is not good, you can still graduate from the academy normally, and then I will be able to arrange you into the second team, so why worry now? What? Naruto sighed and helped her to the dormitory. Along the way, Feijun leaned against his arms and chatted with him in a soft whisper. She enjoyed this feeling very much, and sincerely hoped that this journey could go on without end. However, after being sent to the door of the dormitory, Naruto couldn't go in. Feijun could only part with him reluctantly. Naruto and her agreed to see her next time and let her go back to her dormitory to rest. For Feijun, every time she meets Naruto-sama, it is a very happy thing. Being able to accompany him and say a few words to him, smelling his breath, she feels that she is full of infinite strength. Motivation. Feijun, take a good rest, don't force yourself, I'll go first. Naruto waved to her, ready to leave. Feijun smiled and nodded, and at this moment, she suddenly groaned and spit out a mouthful of blood. Huh, Naruto was stunned for a moment, then turned around quickly, hugged Feijun in a blink of an eye, and saw the appearance of blood hanging from the corner of her mouth. She was shocked and inexplicable. What's the matter with you? He asked quickly. Feijun was also shocked. She didn't expect that she would suddenly vomit blood. At this time, she felt a pain in her body, and she couldn't help but panic. However, seeing Naruto's concerned look, Feijun felt that she should not let him worry about her anymore, shook her head, and said with a smile, Lord Naruto, I'm fine. Naruto frowned. He mentioned a trace of spiritual power and penetrated into Feijun's body, but he didn't find anything wrong in her body, and he was even more puzzled and worried. It's definitely not accidental that Feijun suddenly vomited blood. It must be some hidden disease in the body. Thinking of the ending of Feijun's early death in the original plot, Naruto felt even more uneasy. No, Higen, I'll take you to find the captain of the 4th division now. Naruto suddenly hugged her, and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Lord Naruto, seeing Naruto's anxious appearance, Fei's heart felt warm, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of happiness. Seeing that Naruto-sama cares so much about himself, even if he were to die, it would be worth it. Although she didn't know what happened to her body, it didn't matter anymore, and now her heart was full of happiness and joy. Being held in her arms by Naruto, leaping in the jingling court, and feeling the wind whistling past her ears, she only felt extra peace of mind. 1045, Body of Yin Spirit. In the 4th squad. Naruto stood in front of a young man with Higen in his arms. The young man is the vice captain of the 4th division, Yamada Kyosuke. He shook his head and sighed at this moment. Sorry, Uzumaki Naruto, I can't do anything about Hygiena's situation. The captain has something to do now, and I don't know when I will be back. What can I do? Naruto couldn't help but feel anxious when he heard this. He came to the 4th division and thought that he could find a way to save Higen, but he didn't expect that the captain of Ujiwali was not there, and the deputy captains even with medical skills. It was impossible to see Feijun's situation. This time, Naruto felt a little heavy, and even the vice captain couldn't see the situation of Feijun, and the situation of Feijun didn't seem to be that simple. Feijun, don't worry, just wait for Captain Ujiwali to come. She is the strongest god of death in the field of corpse and soul medicine, and she will definitely be able to cure you. Naruto comforted. Yeah, with Naruto-sama by my side, I don't have to worry about anything. Fei-jun laughed. What an infatuated little girl. At this moment, a soft female voice sounded from behind, accompanied by the light footsteps. Naruto turned his head, only to see the captain of Ujawali coming slowly. Under the loose Captain Yori, she couldn't hide her graceful figure, with a gentle and kind smile on her beautiful face, and her long black hair was tied into a big braid and stood on her chest. Her whole person's temperament is noble and elegant, but the friendly smile on her face adds a touch of approachability and tenderness to her. Captain Yusohana. Seeing her return, the vice captain and the surrounding team members all greeted her. Ujawali smiled and nodded, came to Naruto, and looked at the girl Fei-jun in his arms. Is it a patient? Yes, Captain, I can't see anything about her situation. Please bother you, the vice captain said respectfully. Ujawali's eyes flashed, and he glanced at Naruto. Come with me to the back room. Naruto nodded. He knew that Uno Hanariot was the medical master in the Gode 13 team, equivalent to the existence of Tsunade in Hokage. If it was her, she would definitely be able to find out what happened to Fei-jun and solve it, right? Naruto thought so. When he came to the back room, Ujawali sat down and motioned Naruto to put Hijin on a bed. You're the third seat of the second division, Naruto Uzumaki, right? Uzumaki asked as he went up to check Hijin. Naruto was stunned, wondering why she asked herself, nodded and said, yes, it was Captain Yi who promoted me. Well, it seems that you are very talented. Even the captain of Yamamoto said that you have the qualifications to be a captain. Ujawali smiled faintly. Naruto smiled back. Suddenly, she looked at Fei-jun and frowned slightly, a dignified expression flashed on her face, and said to Naruto, go out, I'm going to give her a soul check now, it's not convenient for you to be here. Naruto was stunned again, seeing that the expression on her face seemed to be a little bad. He couldn't help but worry and wanted to ask some questions, but in the end he didn't say anything. Say leave. He came to the outer hall. The deputy captain stepped forward and asked, Uzumaki Naruto, how is it? Naruto shook his head. Captain Uzawa said he would give her a major soul check. I don't know what's going on for the time being. A full body examination. The vice captain was slightly startled, and said in a heavy tone, Uzumaki Naruto, under normal circumstances, the captain would never give anyone a full body examination, unless it was a condition that even she found difficult. We'll make such a decision. Ever since I became the vice captain, I have never seen Captain Unoka do a soul check to anyone. Hearing this, Naruto frowned deeply. After a while, until dusk, Naruto's mood became anxious, and Ujawali walked out of the back room. There was no expression on her face. Captain, you've worked hard. The vice captain handed her a cup of tea. Waved his hand and said directly to Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto, take a step and talk to me. Naruto looked startled, then nodded. The two walked out of the team building and came to the courtyard outside. Captain Uzawa, what's going on with Fei-jun? Naruto couldn't help asking. Uzawa took a deep breath and said slowly, her situation is very special. So far, I have only seen this situation from some ancient books. Huh, what's the situation? Naruto felt even worse. The body of Yin spirit. Ujawali looked at Naruto and said solemnly, the spiritual power of ordinary souls is the balance of yin and yang, but there is a kind of soul that is born with only pure yin and pure yang attributes. This kind of soul, eternal, only appears once. Naruto was startled. What's going on? Ujawali sighed slightly. Don't think that this kind of soul is rare and will be very strong in cultivation. In fact, on the contrary, this kind of soul is actually a deformed soul, and in the world of corpses, it generally does not survive for 200 years. Naruto trembled. He never thought that Fei-jun's body still hides such a secret. He hurriedly asked, Captain Uzawa, is there any way to save her? Ujawali looked at Naruto anxiously. and suddenly asked, "Is that girl important to you?" Naruto nodded. "I also heard what she said during the inspection just now. Regarding the matter between you and her, you entered the jingling court with excellent talent and became the third seat. In the future, you will definitely be the captain who will work with me, but, what a pity, if you want to save her, there is only one way. Please tell me, what is the solution?" Naruto said anxiously. "Dedicate your equal amount of pure young spiritual power to help her balance her soul." Maujawali stared at him and said. When Naruto heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. Is it that simple? This is not a trivial matter. You should be clear about the importance of yin and yang balance. Once you give her the spiritual power of the pure young part, although it will not be as life-threatening as her, it will definitely suffer in the future. This kind of yin and yang imbalance pain, and this kind of pain, must take 100 years to recover, and, in this 100 years, your spiritual power will not only fail to progress, but may also cause regression. 1046. Healing. Naruto's words made Naruto ponder. The power of yin and yang of the soul. In this regard, he also knows that whether it is the body or the soul, once the yin and yang are out of balance, the consequences will be very serious, and the imbalance of the soul seems to be more difficult to cure than the body. If you give out part of the pure young spiritual power to Feijun, the spiritual power in the body will inevitably become unbalanced. At that time, as Ujawali said, the spiritual power of the whole body will be out of balance, and a very difficult situation will occur. However, if Feijun is not saved, her lifespan will only be 200 years. Now that she has this situation, how many more years can she live? Thinking of this, Naruto immediately decided to save her. Watching her die, he couldn't do it. Naruto suddenly laughed. Isn't it just 100 years of spiritual power imbalance? After 100 years, I can still become stronger. Hearing his heroic laughter, Maujawali's eyes flashed with admiration. He nodded and said, "Okay. Sure enough, a hero is a boy. If that's the case, then prepare yourself and come back to me tomorrow." Naruto nodded. "Oh, by the way, Captain Unohana, please ask you one more thing. Don't let this matter be known by Feijun." "Well, I see, Uzumaki Naruto, I will keep this secret for you." Uzumaki nodded with a smile. "Then thank you, I will leave." Naruto said goodbye and left. Ujawali looked at his back and smiled slightly. What a gentleman. When we got back to the 2nd Division team building, the sky was already dark. As soon as Naruto went back, Yi walked over. "Really, Naruto, why aren't you in the team quarters today? Broken Bee has been busy all day, and I haven't seen you come to help her." Naruto glanced at her, shook his head and smiled. "This girl, Broby, doesn't want me to help her." "Huh, what's the matter? Did you two get along well?" Yi frowned slightly, approaching Naruto and said in a bad tone, "Naruto, this is not right. If you bully Subi, I won't forgive you." "What?" Naruto waved his hand and smiled helplessly. "I didn't bully her. Forget it. I'd better go back to the room to rest first." "Wait, Naruto, where did you go just now?" Yi grabbed him again and asked. "Just went out for a walk." He shook his head and quickly returned to the room. Yi frowned slightly, looked at his back as he left quickly, and murmured, "This guy, it seems like something is wrong. Strange." At this time, Broken Bee came out from one side. "Master Yi." Yi nodded a little and asked, "Brobe, how are you getting along with Naruto?" "Don't worry, Lord Yi, we get along just fine." Broken Bee nodded obediently and said with a smile. Yi touched her head. "Well, we must continue to get along well in the future." At night, Naruto lay in bed, thinking about tomorrow in his mind. To be honest, when he made this decision to sacrifice his spiritual power to save Feijun, Naruto struggled in his heart. In order to save a woman, he ruined his future for a century of development. Is it really worth it? Maybe it's not worth it. Feijun is just an ordinary girl. Sacrificing her strength to save her will only make her strength stagnate, or even go backwards, which hinders her pursuit of strength. However, if he knew that he could save her, but watched her die in pain, he would feel even more uncomfortable. Feijun may not be his own woman, but Naruto understands her intentions in his heart. Every time he sees her adoring and admiring eyes, Naruto will be slightly shocked. Such a pitiful girl, how can he be? Can you let her go? Naruto, who has experienced several worlds, already understands. The way of cultivation lies in cultivating the mind. No matter what kind of power it is, as long as the heart is strong enough, the power of the mind can penetrate space and travel through time. Break the dimension. And now, Naruto regards giving up 100 years of cultivation for Feijun as a kind of cultivation. Abandonment will be accompanied by the loss of power, but what he will gain is spiritual satisfaction and sublimation. To the mind, power is nothing but a foreign object. Thinking of this, Naruto couldn't help showing a relieved smile on his face. Everything will be done tomorrow. On the windowsill, a figure appeared there quietly, with a slender figure, like an orchid blooming in the dark night. She looked at Naruto's worried look, and the doubts on her face became heavier. The next day, Naruto got up early, said goodbye to Yi, Brobe and others, and left in a hurry. Looking at the back of Naruto leaving, Yaiki also said a word to Broken Bee and disappeared. Broken Bee stood on the spot with a face of resentment and muttered, "Master Yi, why do you care so much about that annoying guy? What good is he?" In the fourth squad, Ujawali waited in the room early. "Captain Yusohana, I've kept you waiting." Naruto's figure appeared in front of her. Ujawali was sitting on the futon in the center of the room, quietly closing her beautiful eyes, and when she heard Naruto's voice, she slowly opened it, a glimmer of light flashed in her eyes, and said, "Have you figured it out? If you regret it, it's too late, and I don't want an excellent person like you to lose the opportunity for a century of development." Naruto smiled lightly. "I made a decision, and I have never regretted it. I will never regret it in the future." "Very good. If so, please come with me." She stood up gently, opened the door of the side room, and entered with Naruto. After Naruto entered with her, he saw Feijun lying on the couch at a glance. At this time, her pretty face was slightly pale, and her beautiful eyes were closed and she fell into a deep sleep. "I let her fall asleep, and wake her up after your pure young spiritual power has rescued her, and she will never know," Ujawali said. "However, this matter must be confidentiality. I have set up an enchantment around the team building to ensure that the news will never leak out." Quote. Naruto nodded, and Ujawali thought very thoughtfully. If this matter was known to others, it would also have a bad impact on himself. At least those who were secretly peeping at him would definitely be dispatched because of this. Bar. 1047. Black Belly. "Okay, let's start then," Ujawali said lightly. She pointed to Feijun, who was lying on the bed, and the quilt on her body suddenly flew up. In an instant, she really showed her pure white body under the quilt, which turned out to be naked. This, Naruto couldn't help stunned. I saw Feijun's jade-like body completely displayed in front of him. She was lying there peacefully. The two peaks in front of her chest were like jade bowls buckled upside down. Her waist was as slender as a willow, her slender jade legs, and the mysterious grass and flowers between her legs. Naruto stared blankly for a while. He didn't understand why Captain Unohakali did this. Seemingly seeing Naruto's embarrassment, the corners of Ujawali's mouth flashed slightly, and he smiled lightly on his face. "Well, I seem to have forgotten to tell you the method of treatment. As you can see, if you want to save her, you must fuse with her, and the best way to fuse your soul is mating." Quote. Naruto was speechless. This kind of thing didn't say earlier, and now it came so suddenly, and I didn't have any mental preparation. How can I get on myself? The most important thing is that Feijun is sleeping right now. Let herself cross a sleeping girl in circles, and it seems that she hasn't asked her wishes before, right? Moreover, even if Feijun agreed, how could he suddenly enter the state without foreplay? Naruto couldn't help but froze there. Really, Naruto, looks like you're still a baby, haven't seen a woman before. Ujawali suddenly laughed strangely. Naruto burst into tears. Does this Captain Azuki Hanalei really have the attributes of a black belly? Why do you suddenly give yourself such a show at this time? I said, why didn't you tell me in advance, Captain Ujawali? I have to prepare in my heart. Naruto looked at her speechlessly and said. He, didn't I tell you now? Alright, hurry up and enter the state, this is treatment. It's a serious matter. With a smile on the corner of Ujawali's mouth, he looked narrowly follow him. Naruto turned his head, and his eyes fell on Feijun. In normal times, he would definitely feel that this scene was very beautiful, and even wanted to jump up and eat her, but now, he has a very powerless feeling in his heart. Before he came here with such great determination and made the decision not to hesitate to give up 100 years of cultivation time, but facing him, he actually wanted to make love with Feijun. All right. Think of it as a practice. Naruto closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and had the idea that he was stepping up to the Matsuri altar, about to do something sacred. Come on, then take off your clothes. There was an urging voice of Uzuru Hanaru from behind. This woman is so scary. Naruto glanced back at her and saw that she had an interesting look on her face. He couldn't help but say, Captain Unohana, when you do this kind of thing, I think you should avoid it. This can't be done, I have to guide your pure young spiritual power by the side. As a doctor, I have already taken this kind of thing lightly, you don't need to care about me. Mao Jawali smiled faintly. When Naruto bit Kiba, although he felt that being watched and made love by the side was a very uncomfortable thing, but that was all he could do. The big deal was that Captain Unohana was also regarded as his own woman. Well, although this kind of thought can only be kept in mind. Thinking of this, he will no longer delay. He has experienced so many worlds, and has read countless women. Is he afraid of being seen by a captain of Ujawa? He immediately waved his hand, and the clothes all over his body suddenly fell off, revealing his strong muscles, slender and well-proportioned, which was perfect. A flash of light flashed in Mao Jawali's eyes, and Yuhi couldn't help but slightly face her jade face. When she saw the thing under Naruto's crotch, she couldn't help but look away, suddenly feeling somewhat shy. This situation has never happened to her before. As a doctor, whether it is the body of men or women, she has already been thoroughly familiar with it, and she has read it countless times, but she is still a virgin. She used to be able to maintain a calm mood. When the human body, there is a kind of faint floating in the heart. This man is really in good shape. Such an idea popped into her mind. Naruto glanced at Ujawali, then lay down on the couch and gently embraced Feijun's body in his arms. Feijun, I'm sorry, I made you my woman without your consent. He lowered his head and kissed her lips, tasting it softly and comfortably, temporarily dispelling the embarrassment in his heart point. Mao Jawali looked at the two of them lingering, frowned slightly, and suddenly said, let's start quickly, don't waste any more time. Naruto was stunned for a moment, and glanced at her slightly dissatisfied. For him, making love is a very beautiful thing. You must have a feeling in your heart and a feeling in your body, and then you can start. It's really uncomfortable to be driven by a duck to the shelves, and I don't even have any desire in my heart. Fortunately, Feijun's body is still very attractive, and the soft and delicate touch in his arms finally made Naruto burst into a flame of ashes. At this time, she was still asleep, and it seemed that she was forced to fall asleep by some method, letting Naruto kiss her, touch her, stimulate her, and would not open her eyes. However, with Naruto's light touch, Hijin's body finally reacted, her chest became more erect, and her legs were slightly moistened. Feeling that it was almost over, Naruto finally straightened up and all entered her body. The virgin's blood slowly flowed out, feeling the tightness and slippery inside. Naruto turned his head to look at Ujawali. At this time, Ujawali's face turned Yuhi slightly, and he walked over, looking at the way the two were connected. A shyness flashed in his eyes, and then his expression became normal again, and said lightly, don't move. Now from the beginning, you operate the spiritual power in your body according to my method, and I am also assisting you with the spiritual power." Then, she stretched out her hand and pressed it on top of Naruto's head, and the spiritual power slowly flowed into Naruto's body, guiding his spiritual power to begin to gather, change, flow, and finally turned into a pure yang force from the two of them. Hajime's body poured into the place of intercourse. 1048. Yi Yi cares. Feijun's body suddenly emitting bursts of crimson light, her face suddenly showed a look of pain, her brows were wrinkled, and a trace of fine perspiration flowed down. Naruto watched Feijun's expression carefully, and there was a look of pain on his face. The spiritual power of the original balance of yin and yang in the body was drawn out, and the original balance of power was gradually disrupted. It was like a heavy bomb was suddenly dropped in a peaceful country, and everyone was blown to death. Significant impact. Ujawali is earnestly guiding the spiritual power in Naruto, and began to merge with the power of the yin in Feijun, gradually transforming into balance. Immediately afterwards, the bodies of the three of them were suddenly wrapped in a circle of light by a powerful spiritual force, and the rays of light were so radiant that they could hardly distinguish between the figures. I don't know how long it took before the light finally dimmed. Maujawali stood up and said lightly, "Okay, the balance of yin and yang in Feijun's body is very smooth, I believe her condition is completely under control." At this time, Naruto slowly left her body, and before he could enjoy Feijun's body, he suffered the pain of being pulled out of his body's spiritual power and chaotic. Now, he feels unspeakably bad. Sitting cross-legged on the spot, Naruto frowned, his body became very cold, and even a layer of ice formed. Ujawali frowned slightly, and went forward to wrap the quilt around him. After a while, Naruto opened his eyes. There was a trace of exhaustion in his eyes that could not be concealed, and when he glanced at Feijun, who was sleeping peacefully, a relieved smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Standing up and putting on his clothes, Naruto thanked Ujawali. "Captain Ujawa, thank you for your hard work. Please don't disclose what happened today to anyone. As for Feijun's body, please also excuse me for your help to explain." Maujawali's expression also became serious, and he nodded solemnly. "I know, you are a good man, I will explain it for you when Feijun wakes up. Go back and recuperate in peace. In the past 100 years, you have to try your best to keep your spiritual power from going backwards, and once you adjust the balance, you will gain even greater benefits." Quote. Naruto nodded as well. He staggered slightly, as if he was still not used to this state of spiritual power imbalance. Ujawali stepped forward, gently helped him, and went to the outhouse with him. At this time, the sky was already dark, and a crescent moon hung high outside, and the cold moonlight shone down. Although Naruto was unwell, he felt a sense of relief in his heart. The moon also has a cloudy and sunny moon, not to mention the strength of your own body. Sometimes being too perfect is also a drawback, so there will be incompleteness, and sometimes, incompleteness is just a more dazzling beauty. In Naruto's heart, there was a trace of enlightenment. Everything in the world is like that. At this moment, a crisp female voice suddenly came from the yard in front of the team building. "Naruto, disappeared for a day, so you are here in the 4th division." Naruto and Ujawali were both taken aback for a moment. Swish! A figure flashed in front of the two in an instant. It was Sifanyuan Yei. As soon as she appeared, she saw Naruto looking tired and in a strange state, with a hint of surprise on his face, and hurriedly asked, "What's the matter with you? Are you injured?" Naruto waved his hand. "Don't worry, I'm fine. It's okay. You already look like this, are you still saying it's okay?" Yi was anxious, and turned to ask Ujawali, "Captain Ujawa, what is going on with Naruto?" Ujawali said lightly, "I'm sorry, Captain Yei, I can't say it. This is a secret." Secret? Yi stared at Naruto and Ujawali, trying to see what was going on between the two, but Naruto and Ujawali were very calm, and they didn't do anything bad. "Look. Okay, let's not disturb Captain Unoa anymore, let's go back. Naruto smiled and pulled up Yoichi's arm, turned and was about to leave. No way. You must explain everything to me today. I'm your boss. It's caused by the 4th division after I went out for a day. How can I leave in peace? Come on, Naruto, who made you look like this? Yi asked him anxiously. How could she be as elegant and calm as the captain of the 2nd division before, but now she seems to be worried about her boyfriend girl. Seeing this scene, Ujiwali smiled and said, Captain Yaiki, don't worry, Naruto will become like this. I will explain it to you in person tomorrow, but before that, let Naruto rest first, he tired. Yi's body shook slightly. Okay, Captain Ujiwa, I'll visit again tomorrow. Yi nodded a little, and then stopped pressing. Naruto smiled helplessly. He knows that this incident must not be concealed from the people around him, and what he can do now is to minimize the impact of this incident. All of this will bring trouble to Ujiwali. When he helped Naruto back to the 2nd division, Yi kept a worried look on his face. It was not until she sent him to the room that she finally let out a sigh. Naruto, you have a good rest. She didn't ask any more questions, just turned and left. Seeing her leaving back, Naruto was slightly taken aback. He knew that Yi was worried about himself, just as he cared about her unhappiness at the beginning, but this time, it was his own decision, without taking into account her feelings. However, he couldn't tell her about this kind of thing. The best way is to hide it. It seems that we can only let Ujiwali help explain. The most important thing right now is to take care of your body. Speaking of which, the feeling of yin and yang imbalance in the body is really uncomfortable. He smiled wryly, sat cross-legged on the bed, and entered a state of cultivation. In the 4th squad, Ujiwali was sitting under the eaves sipping tea and admiring the moonlight around him. Whoosh! The next moment, a slender figure instantly appeared in front of her. A gleam of light flashed in Ujiwali's eyes. He took a sip of tea, and said lightly, I knew you wouldn't be able to bear it, Yi. Yeah, if I don't figure this out, I can't sleep peacefully. Yi came to sit down in front of her, but was surprised to find that a cup of tea had already been made in front of her. 1049. Complete Shikai. At this moment, Naruto is cultivating the spiritual power in his body. After separating out a large amount of pure young spiritual power, Naruto is now very uncomfortable, as if he has a feeling of being out of strength, and he can't use any strength. However, he did not give up the idea of recovery. Because he has experienced many worlds, and his experience is already very rich. The imbalance of yin and yang may be difficult to cure here, but in other worlds, it is not so difficult. As long as he can further control the spiritual power, he believes that it will not take 100 years to recover. The way of strength lies in the heart. Naruto deeply understands this truth. He tried to start to enter into deep cultivation. Suddenly, a figure appeared in his consciousness space. A fiery yui-colored waist-length hair, a well-proportioned slender figure, and a gentle smile on his face. It is Uzumaki Kina. Naruto. She came to Naruto and looked at him reproachfully. You, really, to make such a sacrifice, but only to bear it silently, how distressed you make me. Naruto chuckled. This is a decision I made. I think it is beneficial to practice. Although I say that my current state is very bad, I find that my current state of mind has changed a lot, and it seems that my soul is stronger. Hearing this, Kainai shook his head helplessly, stepped forward and patted Naruto's head lightly. You're going to mess up. Naruto dodged and rubbed his nose with a wry smile. At this moment, Kina suddenly laughed. However, Naruto, it's a very wise decision for you to do this. Just because of your current spiritual growth, I can already pass on more power to you. Huh, Naruto was taken aback when he heard the words. You, really, never forget, I'm in your body and will always help you. When you are in pain, don't be alone again, you know. Kina stepped forward, suddenly light, and he hugged Naruto's body lightly. The next moment, a ray of light emerged from Kinai's body and gradually entered Naruto's body. Outside, Naruto suddenly opened his eyes. His body sitting on the bed suddenly stood up, and then he pulled out the Zanpakuto beside him, and bursts of Yuhi-colored light flowed from the blade. He suddenly murmured, Uzumaki's power, Shikai's power is full. Boom. In the room, with Naruto's body as the center, an incomparably violent spiritual force Uzumaki was formed. The powerful Uzumaki force almost knocked the entire room apart. The spinning spiritual force crushed and shattered. Naruto was in the center of Uzumaki of spiritual power, feeling the powerful spiritual power that was constantly pouring in from the surrounding nature, and the whole body was immersed in a wonderful feeling. And the pure young spiritual power that had been lost before was miraculously replenished and recovered little by little during the influx of countless spiritual powers around. Not only that, Uzumaki's spiritual power has not dissipated, and countless spiritual powers around him are still pouring into his body. His spiritual power is increasing at an extremely fast speed. A suffocating reiatsu spread from him. What's the matter? Almost all of the gods of death who were sleeping were awakened by this spiritual pressure. What a strong spiritual pressure. This is a spiritual pressure that surpasses the captain's level. The gods of death suddenly lost their sleep and looked at the direction of the second division's quarters. Broken Bee clearly felt the pressure of this powerful spiritual pressure. She felt right, this is Naruto's spiritual pressure. At this moment, her small mouth opened slightly, and she murmured incredulously, this spiritual pressure is actually stronger than Captain Yi. How can this bastard do this? Is this fake? She quickly got up, put on a random dress, and rushed towards the direction of Naruto's room. The other captains also sensed this spiritual pressure. Uzumaki Naruto, in a short period of time, he has grown to such a stage. It seems that the experiment must be carried out as soon as possible. In the 5th division, Aizen said secretly. At this moment, even the commander-in-chief was awakened. After a while, the spiritual pressure on Naruto finally dropped. Zanpakuto in his hand, and the Zanpakuto had changed a little at this time. The blade became sharper and firmer than before, with a faint Yuhi-colored shimmer flowing on it, and the handle of the blade turned into a crimson Yuhi color, just like Chennai's Yuhi hair, gorgeous and flawless. Is this the real Shikai of Uzumaki? The previous one was just an incomplete Shikai. Naruto murmured, the power of Uzumaki, engulfing all things, reconciling yin and yang. It turned out that Chennai's power was already so powerful. The current Naruto can truly feel his own unparalleled power. Previous state of incomplete Shikai, this is several times stronger. If it is divided according to the level in the virtual circle, with his current spiritual pressure, he has definitely reached the level of the king in the Vastord level. Compared with the self-proclaimed king of void, Balagang is only stronger than weak. And, not only that, he also discovered that Uzumaki after being completely Shikai has new abilities. All of this is simply too much of a surprise. Naruto held Zanpakuto in his hand and just wanted to scream up to the sky. However, he finally suppressed this urge, gradually calmed the reiatsu in his body, and took back Shikai's power. When everything calms down, Naruto not only found that the unbalanced spiritual power in his body had completely recovered to its original state, but even the spiritual power in the normal state had greatly increased. The body became lighter, and the spiritual power became more substantial, almost overflowing. It seems to be twice as strong as before. Great, thank you, Kinai, Naruto said softly, looking down at Zanpakuto. As if the blade was responding, a Yuhi light flashed slightly. Sure enough, the sacrifice made for Feijun this time is not a bad thing. The way of strength lies in the heart. If my mind hadn't made such progress, I wouldn't be able to make great progress in Zanpakuto's cultivation. It is a very wise decision to make such a decision. Naruto secretly rejoiced in his heart. 1050. Dashu. Hey, Uzumaki Naruto. While Naruto was immersed in the wonderful feeling of his own power improvement, a dissatisfied voice suddenly came from the door. Crisp, cold, but unable to hide the shock. Naruto packed up his mood, stepped forward to open the door, and said with a slight smile, "Bro, what's wrong? Is there something wrong?" Broken Bee stared at him with wide eyes. "You exuded that spiritual power just now, right?" When Naruto heard the words, he couldn't help but screamed badly. "Practice just now, I inadvertently entered the complete Shikai, and I didn't have the power to capture at all. Such a strong spiritual pressure has definitely been known by everyone in the soul world. This is really troublesome. The strength of this Reiatsu is enough to attract the attention of many people, especially that guy Aizen. In this way, isn't the strength of one's spiritual power completely exposed in front of others? Oops, it's bad." Naruto scratched his head. Suddenly, a figure suddenly fell from the sky. Accompanied by a strong spiritual pressure, a gust of wind rose. Naruto's body was shaken, and the next moment he rushed forward, hugged the delicate body of Broken Bee, and rushed forward. Boom! Immediately afterwards, the house behind Naruto was directly smashed into pieces by a powerful spiritual pressure, and the explosion sounded like a thunderclap in the dark night, shocking the soul. Broken Bee let out a coquettish cry, and before he had time to react, he found that he had been crushed by Naruto. A strong masculine aura rushed towards his face, and Broken Bee was flustered and struggled. "Damn! What are you doing, you bastard? Get out of my way!" She kicked Naruto wildly. Naruto then let go of her, turned around, and looked at the figure behind him in the explosion. It's a phantom. The strength of that spiritual pressure alone has already reached the Vastord level. Not only that, this virtual body looks more like a human, but there is a virtual mask on the head, and in this virtual spiritual pressure, there are even some hidden spiritual pressures of the god of death. Roar! This sudden Daxu roared directly and rushed towards the place where Naruto was. Naruto hurriedly pushed the Broken Bee away, and before he had time to speak, he was approached by the sudden rush of Shu. Boom! Dashu stretched out his strong arm and slapped Naruto's head fiercely. Naruto reached out and lifted Zanpakuto, a block. The air wave roared out, and the Broken Bee beside him flew out fiercely. What kind of monster is this? Shubi screamed and got up. Just as he was about to rush over, he was stopped by Naruto. "Stop for me, don't come over if you don't want to die." Broken Bee stood on the spot, staring blankly at the sudden appearance. Her heart suddenly tightened. "Damn, what are you trying to do? I can fight too." She then appeared behind Daxu in a blink of an eye and slashed at Daxu's body. When sound, Broken Bee's Zanpakuto slashed at Daxu's body, but it didn't even cut through its skin. "Let's go." Naruto was shocked. "Is this girl dying?" Daxu turned his head sharply, raised his foot and kicked the body of Broken Bee. Boom! The Broken Bee kicked out directly, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. In midair, her face was full of disbelief. This virtual is actually so strong. Naruto appeared beside her in a blink of an eye, hurriedly caught her and hugged her in his arms. "Hey, are you all right?" Broken Bee wilted in his arms, and passed out before he could answer. Naruto bit Kiba, put the Broken Bee in place, and rushed towards the big virtual. Zanpakuto slashed out fiercely, a half-moon-shaped sword light flashed in the air, and slashed on Dashu's body with a bang. Dashu let out a painful roar, and a bloodstain was ripped open on his chest, but it quickly recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Super speed regeneration. Naruto frowned. This virtual appearance is too unusual. And there is the spiritual pressure of the god of death on his body. It is definitely not an ordinary virtual. In this regard, he can only think of one person, Aizen. It is very likely that this guy made something. He cursed secretly, his figure flashed, and he appeared directly in front of Dashu, and slashed at its chest again. This time, Dashu raised his palm directly, and a gorilla Yuhi-colored light emerged from his palm. Flicker. Naruto was slightly startled, and hurriedly accelerated his slashing speed and slashed towards his arm. Boom! Explode. However, this virtual flash was unexpectedly fast, and it went straight to Naruto's Zanpakuto. Naruto's arm trembled in an instant, and his body was violently lifted out by a huge force. The light of the explosion illuminated the surrounding night, and it also allowed Naruto to see this big virtual body more clearly. Its whole body seems to be covered with a layer of armor, the mask on its head is hideous and terrifying, its stature is tall, and the Reiatsu is full of terror and chaos. Naruto knew that the battle here would definitely involve Broken Bee and the gods of death who lived nearby. At this time, gods of death had already surrounded them one after another. With the power of gods of death, they would definitely be killed in seconds. He bit Kiba, suddenly his body accelerated, and slammed into the big virtual. Boom! I saw Naruto stretched out his hand and grabbed Daxu's neck, rushed into the air, dragged a long trail in the air, and came to a mountain behind Jingling Court. Boom! Naruto directly pressed Daxu's body into the soil, and the powerful spiritual pressure directly blasted a huge dirt pit around him. Just as he was about to raise his arm, he stabbed Daxu in the chest with Zanpakuto. But I saw Dashu suddenly opened his mouth, and one of the Yuhi-colored virtual flashes shot out. At such a close distance, Naruto reacted instantly, a Shunpo disappeared in front of it, and the virtual flash slammed into the sky, like a Yuhi-colored meteor in the night sky. It's just a terrific fic. Naruto wiped his sweat slightly, but luckily just now, he made a decisive decision and moved it here, otherwise the second team's quarters would be completely destroyed, not to mention the Broken Bees and other ordinary players. Inflicting heavy casualties, that would be bad. At this time, there are mountains and fields all around, and for the time being, you don't have to worry about accidentally hurting other people in the battle. It's just as good. Naruto has just realized the complete Shikai. In this case, let's use this big virtual to open the knife. Thinking of this, an excited smile appeared on his face. 1051. Full strength. Let's dance. Uzumaki. Naruto let out a low voice, and along with his low voice, the Zanpakuto in his hand flashed, and in an instant, a strong storm of spiritual power was set off around him, and the surging spiritual power formed a huge Uzumaki around his body. The sky changes color. The earth shook. Boom! When the gust of wind dissipated, Naruto stood quietly and his eyes fell on Dashu. Dashu seemed to sense the threat in front of him, and suddenly took a step back. However, just as it exited the moment, a blade of light fell from the top of its head. As if the thunder from the Silver River, the rainbow light above the 9 heavens, and Naruto's Zanpakuto, fell directly on Daxu's body. Boom! Dashu Kanken raised his head, raised his arms and blocked it. The air within a radius of 100 meters was shaken, and a violent air wave spread from the body of the two to the surrounding. The surrounding trees were directly uprooted by the gust of wind carried by the air wave, and the ground where the two of them were was lifted up by a cloud of mud. The powerful fluctuations of spiritual power made the gods of death in the entire corpse and soul world horrified. At this moment, countless death gods are rushing to the place where this spiritual power fluctuation is. The 13th team of the Guardian is all dispatched. At this time, Yi had already felt this spiritual pressure, and he hurried over halfway through the conversation with Maoji Walai. After a moment, all the members of the Gote 13 team are here. Team 1, Captain Yamamoto. Second team, Knight 1. The 3rd division, Fengchaolojiro. The 4th team, Mao Zihua is strong. 5th division, Hirako Mako. The 6th division, Kuchiki Silver Suzu. The 7th division, Aikawa Luowu. 8th division, Jingle Chunchui. The 9th division, the 6-car Boxing West. The 10th division is vacant. The 11th division Cross House Shiki Kenpachi. The 12th division Urahara Kazuki. The 13th division, Yukataki Shuru. Except for the vacancy of the 10th team captain, almost all the other teams have arrived. Also came with their respective vice captains. They looked at Naruto who was fighting fiercely in the arena and the inexplicably appearing Daxu. At this time, the battle between the two has entered a white-hot stage. Naruto had already noticed that a group of gods of death had come here. However, the strange thing is that these guys are only watching the battle, and they don't even look like they want to come up to help themselves. Even Yi was just watching excitedly from the side. In this case, Naruto's strength has long been exposed. There is no way, since this is the case, he can only defeat this big virtual with his own power. He gripped Zanpakuto tightly, dashing over and slashing at the Daxu. Daxu's strength is also very strong. His arms are as hard as iron, even countless times harder than iron. Naruto's Zanpakuto clashed with its arms, making a sound of golden iron. It's really amazing, this spiritual power has already surpassed the level of the captain. This guy seems to be only at the level of Shikai. It's really scary. Jingle Chunshui knew Naruto. Compared to a few months ago, the feeling that Naruto brings to him has changed drastically. If his strength at that time had already reached the captain level, then his current strength would have surpassed the ordinary captain level. Even himself, in Shikai's state, isn't necessarily stronger than him. Captain Ujiwa, this seems to be a little different from what you said. Yi smiled, looking at Naruto's soaring strength. His heart was filled with joy. She had heard about Naruto from Captain Ujiwa before. When she heard that he actually sacrificed his 100 years of cultivation time to save an ordinary woman, and was willing to endure the pain of 100 years of spiritual power imbalance, this made her feel uneasy. Unexpectedly, the person who emits such a strong spiritual pressure now is actually the seriously injured Naruto that Captain Ujiwa said. This filled her with doubts. And Maojawali was also full of doubts. Naruto was in a very bad state before, but she was very clear. After all, making such a sacrifice is definitely not an illusion. However, now Naruto's situation is unbelievable. This guy is actually able to survive in a desperate situation and stand up. Ujawali murmured, "What a formidable guy." And the other captains looked at Naruto at this time with different expressions. Most were full of surprise and disbelief. A little-known guy, who seems to be just a newly promoted death god, has such strength, which makes it difficult for them to accept it for a while. What is the origin of this guy? This spiritual pressure is actually more exaggerated than me. If D is solved, wouldn't it be stronger? Hirako Mako sighed. Is this the man in Yoichi's mouth? No wonder he was quickly promoted to the third seat. Urahara Kazuki muttered. Roar. At this moment, Daxu, who was fighting Naruto, suddenly erupted. Naruto stabbed it in the chest with a knife and pierced it through the chest. However, Dashu, as if he was dying, rushed towards Naruto, grabbed Naruto's body with both arms, and opened his mouth to bite Naruto's neck. Naruto snorted angrily, although he knew that his body would never be hurt by this kind of thing, but at this time there was a large group of people watching, so he couldn't expose the mystery of his body. He suddenly let go of Zanpakuto, clenched his fists, and a burst of white Reiatsu light burst out from above his fists. Boom. Immediately afterwards, he directly slammed his fist on Daxu's chin. Daxu's body trembled, he cried out in pain, and his head couldn't help but lean back. One glance, and then the whole body suddenly swells. Not good. This guy is going to explode. Hurry up. Yi couldn't help but yelled. Captain Yamamoto and others also all looked shocked. This level of self-destruction is absolutely earth-shattering. Even the people around me will all be affected. And Naruto, who is in the center, is estimated to be blown to pieces. Grabbed Zanpakuto with both hands and pulled it hard. Kai. Blood is pouring out. Boom. Then, a strong explosion sounded, and the sky in the entire Soul Realm was as bright as day. Naruto's figure was directly submerged in the exploding Uzumaki. 1052, Captain. 6 more. The aftermath of the explosion still reverberated in everyone's ears. Looking at the dazzling white light, Yi froze in place as if all his strength had been drained. No way. Was Naruto just killed by this big phantom? This fact is simply unacceptable. She reacted and rushed towards the center of the explosion like she was going crazy. Captain Yei, please calm down. Ujawali stopped in front of her in a blink of an eye. As soon as the knight stopped, his face had already lost his usual calmness. How could he still be calm? However, at this moment, Naruto's voice sounded in the field. Wow, it's so dangerous. I was almost killed. Everyone's eyes narrowed, and they looked behind Yi, only to see Naruto standing there with his upper body naked, the Zanpakuto in his hand slowly returning to the sheath. Naruto. Yi turned around abruptly with a surprised look on his face, and looked at him all over. Are you alright? Looking at her concerned look, Naruto was very moved. Usually Yi gave him the impression that he was very noble and calm, as if he had everything in mind, but when facing himself, he showed but he is so concerned and chaotic. She has always believed in herself, cared about herself, and took care of herself. Even after 100 years, she still cares about herself so much. This kind of friendship will always be remembered by Naruto. I'm fine, but thanks to the footwork you taught me. I'm sorry, I made you worry. I'm really sorry for hiding the past from you. Naruto bowed his head and apologized to her. I was almost scared to death by you. You guys always make me worry. Yi finally relaxed when he saw that he was alright, and couldn't help but let out a coquettish anger. It was a wonderful battle. This old man is also an eye-opener. Uzumaki Naruto, Shunpo is really going to be out of the blue. It seems that your potential is really good. At this time, Captain Yamamoto walked towards Naruto. Come on, he said to him lightly. Even with the strength of this Daxu, few of the captains present can match it. It seems that you are only a mere third seat in the second team. You are a poor talent. Naruto smiled lightly. Since his strength has been exposed, he can't keep a low profile. Yamamoto suddenly said, the position of the captain of the 10th division is still vacant. Uzumaki Naruto, come and participate in the team entry test tomorrow. Wow. As soon as these words came out, everyone around him, whether it was the captain, the vice-captain, or the other gods of death, all exclaimed in surprise. No way. Captain Yamamoto actually designated him as the captain of the 10th division. Uzumaki Naruto, I've never heard of this name before. It's so powerful. Yeah, it's very likely that it's just a student who graduated from the True Spiritual Arts Academy this year. I didn't expect to be the captain of the 10th team just after taking the third seat in the second division. A peerless genius. Hearing Yamamoto's words and the surrounding discussions, Naruto was also very surprised. At this time, Yi patted Naruto on the shoulder, smiled at him and said, Naruto, you have finally grown into a god of death who can be on your own. Very good, let's go. I can no longer be the third seat of the second division. I've come to bind you. Becoming captain is the way you have to go. Having said this, Yi encouraged again, but don't think about stopping like this. The road to strength is still very long. Come on, I will work hard with you. Who will become the captain? Naruto nodded. After a while, everyone left. Only Captain Yamamoto and Urahara Kazuki were left at the scene, as well as some Shinigami who were conducting on-site investigations. It's definitely not that simple to happen. This phantom is different from ordinary phantoms in terms of strength and nature. It actually carries the spiritual pressure of the god of death, and its fighting method is also very similar to the god of death, but it can launch phantom flashes, and its strength is extremely powerful, even stronger than the captain level. Be strong. As the director of the Technology Development Bureau, Kazuki Urahara, the captain of the 12th Division, of course, had to investigate such a suspicious matter. In fact, based on his experience, he already knew in his heart that this must be man-made. Judging from the state of this big phantom, it was the product of the death god's soul-strengthening experiment. It's just that, in this world of corpses, apart from doing these experiments by himself, who else is still doing it? This has to be something to watch out for. When Naruto and Yaiki returned to the 2nd Division team building, Broken Bee had already been placed in the room. Although she was seriously injured by Daxu's attack, fortunately it was not too serious. After her own spiritual pressure conditioning, there is no danger anymore. As long as you rest for a few days, you will be fine. And Yaiki had learned the whole story from Ujawali before, although she felt uncomfortable about Naruto sacrificing his spiritual power for a girl, but because of this, she felt even more that Naruto was a worthy person to trust, to rely on, and to wait for a man. In Naruto's room, Yi Ijung and Naruto were sitting on the couch chatting and drinking. Because after tomorrow, Naruto will basically be the captain. At that time, the team will be busy and the time to get together will be less and less. Therefore, Yi planned to have a long talk with Naruto here all night. The two were drinking and chatting, and they were very happy. Yi talked about what happened in the virtual circle 100 years ago, and was amused by himself who was trying to be strong at that time but twisted his feet, and was very happy because Naruto carried her all the way. After that, they chatted. Yi said the resentment that Naruto had ignored her for 100 years, and how excited it was until the moment they met. How did Naruto know that the chance encounter in the virtual circle would have such a big impact on this absolute strong woman in the corpse and soul world, known as the Instant God? Moreover, Yi even said that over the years, she had used her own strength to find him in the virtual circle. Naruto couldn't help sighing secretly. At this point, if he still can't understand Yi's mind, he can really find a piece of tofu and kill him. The beauty is deeply affectionate. How can Naruto understand everything Yi has done for himself? Next, Naruto continued drinking and chatting with her, and before she knew it, the time had passed. When he woke up the next day, Naruto covered his dizzy head and opened his eyes, but he couldn't help being surprised. 10:53. Night 1's long-cherished wish. I don't know how to describe the scene in front of me. I saw that I and Yi were lying on the bed at this time. Their clothes were messy, and there were still unfinished food and wine jars on the side table. And the most surprising thing is that Yi was completely naked. That slightly black skin, delicate and smooth, exudes a unique luster. She is lying in her arms at this time, and Naruto's own clothes have long disappeared. The two were skin to skin, and they were covered with quilts indiscriminately. Still a hint of Yuhi dizziness on Yi's face, as if he drank too much last night and hadn't woken up yet. Naruto covered her head and wanted to get up, but found that Yi's jade arms were clasped even tighter. She tightly wrapped her arms around her neck, and pressed her beautiful face against her chest. And her naked body was wrapped around her body like an octopus. At this moment, Naruto instantly felt the feeling of the round and full place on her chest pressing against his chest, heavy, soft, with an amazing elasticity. And her pair of slender jade legs were directly entangled around Naruto's waist. What's worse is that the bulging place under Naruto is aligned with the gap between her spread legs, lying in the middle of the grass. Naruto groaned and groaned weakly. In such a tempting scene, how could he bear it? He stood up all of a sudden and pressed against her place. Just go right in. Yi seemed to feel the discomfort under her body. She pouted and hummed lightly. She moved her body and changed her position to continue sleeping. But this time, Naruto was even more difficult to endure, because Yi actually pressed her slender and smooth thighs directly against Naruto's crotch, as if she had been bitten, and Yi shook and rubbed slightly. Well, can't stand it. Naruto was lying there, and the stimulation below was even harder like a Jinchuriki column. She wanted to push Yuichi away, but her arms were so tight that she wouldn't let go. No. If it goes on like this, it will definitely be unbearable. But Yi still slept soundly, without any signs of waking up. No way. Naruto had no choice but to reach out and pat her face lightly. My head is so dizzy. Yi murmured and opened his beautiful eyes, looking lazily at Naruto below him. Naruto, why are you in my bed? She asked suspiciously, as if she hadn't realized the huge trouble she had brought to Naruto. Naruto looked at her with a wry smile, waiting for her to wake up. 3 seconds passed. Yi finally shuddered, and a Yuhi-tide appeared on his jade face. She quickly lifted the quilt to take a look, and found that she had nothing on her body. Naruto, it looks like we had a relationship last night. She immediately covered her head and sighed, but she didn't look like she was screaming and getting angry. Hey, what does it mean to have a relationship? Don't you even know this? I'm still wearing pants. Naruto suddenly cried out in tears. And the best thing you should do now is put on your clothes. There is no time to sigh. Looked at Naruto's bulging crotch, his face became even more moist, and he spat softly. Really, I thought I was having sex after drinking last night. Now it seems that nothing really happened. She reached out and touched between her legs and smiled helplessly. There was still a hint of regret in his tone. Her actions almost made Naruto spit out a nosebleed. Is Yaiki really such an open person? Why wouldn't there be any extreme reaction to being naked in front of him? The kind of reaction that was like a broken bee's clothes falling off before was considered normal. Hey Naruto, suddenly, Yi leaned over and asked with a smile, what do you think about my body? Does it look good? Why are you suddenly asking such a question? Naruto's heart beat faster, his eyes fixed on her delicate body, and he glanced up and down. Although Yi's complexion was slightly dark, his body was well proportioned and uneven, as if it was natural, but also with a wild charm. Of course it looks good. Naruto couldn't hold back, he stretched out his hand and grabbed Yi's shoulder. At this moment, he had the urge to overwhelm Yi to the ground. That's right. But since nothing happened to us last night, it means that the time has not yet come, so let's pretend that this thing has not happened now. Yi saw the fire in Naruto's eyes. She hesitated for a moment, then suddenly pushed him away, and quickly got up and put on her clothes. While dressing, she smiled and said, I usually sleep naked. I probably did it when I was drunk last night. Naruto stared blankly at her getting dressed, but the flames in his heart could not be extinguished. No way. Pick up your own ashes, and then just think about it. Looking at Naruto's fiery eyes looking at him, Yi was secretly ashamed and happy, but his face showed a narrow look. Naruto, last night was your best chance. It's too late now. Let's talk about it when you catch me. She glanced at Naruto's bulging crotch, smiled slyly, and disappeared in an instant. Naruto was stunned. What did Yi mean? He thought he could get into a fiery relationship with Yi, but he didn't expect that she suddenly rejected him. This came so fast that he ran away before he had time to hold Yi. In fact, Yi's heart is very complicated now. If she has a relationship with Naruto, she is still very happy to accept it. However, in a sober state, she didn't want to be his woman in such a logical state. As a strong woman known as Shunshin, the captain of the 2nd Division, and the head of the Sifanyuan family, Yi is behind these countless dazzling halos, but deep down she is also eager to be conquered. She longed for a strong and gentle man who could crush her both in strength and emotion. Undoubtedly, Naruto has not yet met this requirement, and his current strength is far from enough. Therefore, she has been cultivating and protecting Naruto, giving him the best environment to develop, and letting him conquer herself like the man in her ideal. This is Yi's long-cherished wish, the pride of being a strong woman. 1054. Entry Test. Naruto managed to suppress the burning fire in his heart, and finally got dressed and left the room. He remembered that he seemed to be going to the first team today for an entry test. Captain of the 10th Division. This title is quite majestic. Of course Naruto likes it very much. Although he will not be able to get along with Yi for the time being, he has also gained an identity and status because of this, which will be more beneficial to his future practice. Therefore, Naruto is still looking forward to being the captain of the 10th Division. What happened last night made Naruto secretly wake up. That phantom that suddenly appeared was definitely man-made. In the future, only by becoming stronger step by step, can I get rid of all the conspiracy and tricks. And becoming the captain is undoubtedly the best choice to protect yourself at the moment. In the hall where the first team is located, Captain Yamamoto stood in the first place, and the captains of the other divisions stood on both sides. Because today is the moment to decide the position of the 10th Division captain. Team Entry Test. every captain must come to participate. When Naruto came here, he found that Yoichi was already in line. Captain Yamamoto, I'm here. Naruto stepped forward and smiled faintly. Let's start the team test. Well, very good. It seems that you are very confident. Yamamoto's eyes flashed a light. However, before entering the team for the test, the old man has to tell you something, because every captain in the past has always only those who need to get the solution can do it, and you are a special case. As far as I know, you just got Zanpakuto a few months ago and you still can't solve it, right? Naruto nodded. Yes, my dissolution has not been completed. So, your team entry test will be different from the previous team entry test. A rare smile appeared on the corner of Yamamoto's mouth, and he slowly said, your team entry test will be the same as the one with the exception. All captains except me fight. Naruto was surprised. Fight with all captains. He couldn't help but glanced at the captains around him and smiled bitterly. However, Yamamoto added, of course, instead of letting all the captains besiege you, you are asked to fight with them in turn. As long as you can reach the level of their satisfaction and approval, you can pass the team entry test. In the past, it was right the tests are all tested by the old man and myself, and the difficulty is also controlled by the old man, as long as the old man is satisfied. But now you are different, what you need to do is to satisfy every captain. It's an additional condition that you can't solve. How? After Naruto listened, his eyes flashed. He glanced at the surrounding captains, and smiled lightly, no problem. As soon as the words fell, the faces of the surrounding captains also showed a trace of excited smiles. In that case, let me come first. Yi Yi was the first to stand up. Naruto nodded and looked at Yi Yi. At this time, her face had long since lost the drunkenness of yesterday and this morning. She was dressed in the captain's feather-knitted suit, and she was full of heroism and AWE-inspiring momentum. Come on, let me personally feel the progress you have made these days. Yi Yi smiled lightly, and with a flash of body shape, he and Naruto came to the midair above the team building. In order not to destroy the surrounding buildings, the battlefield is in midair. As the two reached the air, the other captains came out of the hall one after another and looked up. Yi Yi, don't be merciful. Naruto looked at her and smiled. Absolutely not. Yi Yi smiled faintly, his figure flashed, and he was already rushing towards Naruto. This time, I'll use Shunpo and Shirataka to fight you. Yuichi's Captain Haori suddenly fell off, revealing her perfect figure in a tight battle suit, her smooth jade back exposed. Instant open. Yi Yi gave a light drink, and saw that a white spiritual pressure suddenly appeared from all over her body, attached to the surface of her body like a substance, and condensed a lot behind her. Captain-level solution with the change of his own spiritual power. From this point of view, Yi Yi is indeed a fighting genius. However, Naruto is not afraid of this momentary opening. Because in terms of white fights, Naruto's self-confidence is only stronger than Yaiki. After all, he has combat experience in multiple worlds, and it must be much stronger than the combat mode of this world. He smiled faintly, watching Yi Yi always rush towards him, wrapped in an infinite momentum and gust of wind. Swish! His figure disappeared in a blink of an eye. Yi noticed Naruto's movements in an instant, and her body flashed in an instant, and the white light blasted in another direction like thunder. Naruto just appeared under Yaiki's fist. He had to lift Zanpakuto and put a slight stop on his chest. Boom! In an instant, an explosive force erupted from Yaiki's fist, and Naruto's arm burst, and his body flew upside down toward the ground. However, just as Naruto was about to approach the ground, Yi Yi appeared behind him again and punched him. In a hurry, Naruto smiled slightly, and a faint arc flashed across the corner of his mouth. He did not dodge or evade, and he suddenly twisted in midair, miraculously dodging Yi Yi's attack, and then he stretched out his hand. Grabbed Yi Yi's arm and threw it forward fiercely. Call! Naruto's body was suddenly thrown out by Naruto. When she reacted, she found that Naruto had disappeared in place. The next moment, a fist fell in the air, hitting her shoulder. A flash of admiration flashed in Yi-Yi's eyes. The precision of this shot and the agility of his skills have caught up with him. This guy is really great. A dazzling ray of light burst out from her body with a sudden bang. Instead of dodging, she raised her fist and faced Naruto. Boom! The fists of the two collided in midair, making a loud noise, followed by a wave of air that spread around. It's actually comparable to Captain Yi-Yi's instant opening. Is this guy's white attack so powerful? The captains below couldn't help but secretly startled. It seems that Yaiki has taught him a lot of shunpo skills. If the collision strength just now, if there is no instant open skills, it will be difficult to produce. Urahara Kazuki frowned slightly. 1055, all approved. At this time, Naruto's figure appeared in the air, and he saw a white spiritual pressure lingering on his body. The highly dense spiritual pressure even completely shredded the clothes on his upper body, leaving him naked. Sturdy body. Yes, Naruto, I've never taught you instant opening. I didn't expect you to be able to develop this kind of instant opening-like ability yourself. Yi-Yi said with admiration. Naruto smiled lightly. In fact, he has already learned this kind of Reiatsu technique, and he is confident that he can use it better than Yi-Yi. He used this technique before when he fought against the Vastord-level Daxu in the virtual circle. However, in the Soul realm, he couldn't reveal the more concise skills, so he could only cover the high-density ghost spirit pressure all over his body, similar to the instant opening. And after Yi-Yi saw that Naruto also used a technique similar to the instant opening, his bellicose heart also increased, the spiritual pressure of his whole body was high, and he rushed towards him again. For a time, the two collided in midair, and the airwaves of the spiritual pressure were overwhelming, oppressing the other gods of death in the jingling court. After a long time, the two finally stopped. The spiritual pressure on Yi-Yi's body gradually dissipated. Looking at Naruto, who was still in the sky with spiritual pressure, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Very good, Naruto, you have passed my level. I am very satisfied with you. Performance. Naruto then withdrew all his spiritual power, wiped the sweat that was not visible on his forehead, and said with a smile, I thought you were going to fight me all the time. Hee, next time I have a chance, I'll definitely have a good fight with you. This time it's a test, so that's it for now. Yi blinked and returned to the ground in an instant. Looking at the other captains, the next one. Well, after the second division, let me come to the third division. The young man with long curly yellow hair stood up gracefully and said with a smile. His figure flashed, and the next moment, he was in front of Naruto in a blink of an eye. Captain of the third division, Jiro Fengqiaolu. He politely greeted Naruto with a gentleman's salute, with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. Of course Naruto knew that this captain was also a powerful figure. Even though he looked like a gentleman, his ability was also very powerful. Uzumaki Naruto, please give me more advice. Naruto also saluted. Yes, this is a duel between gentlemen. He smiled. Naruto also smiled faintly. The two sides stood in the air. Naruto had already consumed part of the spiritual energy in his body due to the battle with Yaiki just now, but he was not afraid at all at this time. Suddenly, Fengqiaolu stretched out a finger and aimed it at Naruto. One of the broken roads, rush. Boom. An invisible Reiatsu shock wave blasted out from his fingertips in an instant, hitting Naruto's chest. Naruto stretched out his hand to block Zanpakuto, and immediately let the shock dissipate. Play it, Jinsha Luo. Zanpakuto liberation language came. The next moment, accompanied by a powerful spiritual pressure, the Zanpakuto in Fengqiaolu's hand suddenly turned into a long golden whip, and at the end of the whip, a golden flower bloomed. Immediately afterwards, he swung his long whip violently and swiped towards Naruto's position. The attack range is very wide. Naruto raised Zanpakuto to block, and Zanpakuto was immediately entangled in the whip. Cut. He curled his lips and pulled hard, pulling Fengqiaolu's body towards him, and at the same time he stretched out a finger and whispered in his mouth, "The fourth broken way, Baile." Boom! In an instant, a thunderlight as thick as an arm shot towards Feng Luzhiro. The 39 circular gate fan. Feng Luzhiro was also slightly already, and immediately used a defensive ghost way, forming a circular blue energy shield that was constantly rotating in front of him. Boom! The power of Naruto Baile slammed on the round gate fan and was immediately blocked. But it also caused Feng Luzhiro to relax his control over Zanpakuto, and let Naruto pull Zanpakuto out, and Shin dodged and approached his body. In terms of the speed of the sprint, Naruto is confident that even these veteran captains can't compare with him. Feng Luzhiro quickly pulled back, but because he was holding a long whip, it was very inconvenient to move. As soon as Naruto approached, he immediately fell into passive. Stop! Just when Naruto was about to slash at him, Feng Luzhiro reached out his hand to stop him, and then smiled bitterly. "Uzumaki Naruto, I recognize you, you can instantly see my Jinsha Luo's weakness. This is the first time I have encountered such a keen observation opponent." After he finished speaking, he withdrew Shikai, and Naruto also stood up with a knife, and said with a smile on his face, "I passed the prize." Feng Luzhiro smiled faintly, and then he dodged back to the ground. Next is the captain of the 4th division, Uno Hanaritsu. However, she looked up at Naruto, but nodded directly and said, "Well, I have seen the strength of Uzumaki Naruto, and I am inconvenient to fight, so I will directly agree, let the 5th division captain Hirako come on." Quote. Cut. "It's really troublesome. Since that's the case, I won't take any action," Hirako Mako grinned. Everyone was stunned. Then the other captains also expressed their approval and did not directly participate in the battle. "Well, it seems that it turned out that it was only me and Yi who made the trial stone," Feng Luzhiro said with a wry smile. Captain Yamamoto glanced at everyone and said, "Since none of you plan to test Uzumaki Naruto's strength in person, then this old man will no longer be reluctant. Here, this old man officially announces that Uzumaki Naruto is the captain of the 10th division. There are objections." Everyone was silent. That is, there is no objection. Naruto appeared in front of everyone and asked strangely, "Why don't you all fight me?" Hirako Mako said indifferently, "I don't want to play against an opponent who consumes a lot of spiritual power, that's not interesting at all." Naruto was stunned for a moment. Is this the arrogance of being a captain? After thinking about it, he smiled relievedly. Right, compared to them, I haven't even completed the dissolution yet. If these captains really want to embarrass themselves, they can definitely suppress themselves with their dissolution ability, but they will never use it at ordinary times. Just real ability. Since they all recognize themselves, why not do it? 1056, Captain of the 10th Division. After becoming the captain, Captain Yamamoto personally delivered the 10th Division Captain Haori to Naruto. Naruto smiled and replaced the Captain Haori on the spot. The moment he put on that floating feather weave, a leadership temperament that radiated from the inside out immediately made other people's eyes light up. Short blonde hair, a worn smile, and a tall figure. Suddenly there was an idea in everyone's heart that, this guy is the captain. In fact, it is no wonder that everyone thinks this way. Naruto has experienced several worlds, been a Hokage, a savior, and a magician of God who is admired by thousands of people. He has the temperament, let alone the leader of a team, even if it's not an exaggeration to be God. Okay, from now on you will be the captain of the 10th Division. Go back and arrange the team first. As the new captain, you have to get along well with the team members. Captain Yamamoto said to him. Naruto nodded. The next step is to leave each other. Because of Naruto's new appointment, other teams must also explain some situations. In this way, Naruto successfully became the captain of the 10th Division. In less than half a year, such an achievement has been achieved, which is a legendary existence in the Soul Society and even the Jingling Court. A day later, the second team was in the quarters. Broken B's injury was almost recovered, and then she remembered that she hadn't seen that annoying guy since the day before yesterday. She couldn't help but feel very good. She walked out of the door and saw Yi Yi. Master Yi. She was slightly overjoyed and hurried over to say hello. Well, Broken Bee, how are you recovering? Yi Yi asked softly, rubbing her head with a smile. Broken Bee nodded heavily. I'm almost healed. Thank you Lord Yi for your concern. Well, you should be concerned about your subordinates. Yi Yi said with a smile. By the way, Broken Bee, I will accept you as the third seat of the second division in the future. You have to behave well. The third seat. Broby couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and asked in doubt, isn't he the third seat Naruto Uzumaki? She was slightly surprised. That bastard wouldn't be promoted to vice captain. That's not right. Vice Captain Omeitien Shijujin is a powerful faction. He won't retire so soon, will he? Yi Yi heard the words. A slight smile appeared on his face. Naruto, he has become the captain. What? Broken Bee suddenly jumped up in exclamation, and then realized that he seemed to have overreacted, and calmed himself down again, looking at Yi Yi in disbelief. Master Yi, this can't be true. Right. I haven't been out of the house these days. I didn't expect him to be the captain. Yeah, he is the captain of the 10th division now. As expected of the man I like. Yi Yi touched the head of the bee. You have to work hard, at least you can't be much worse than him. Quote. Broken Bee was speechless for a while, and his heart was very complicated. That nasty bastard actually left and became the captain of the 10th division. That's a high-ranking figure, and he actually took the position without warning. It's unbelievable. However, when she heard what Yi Yi said, she couldn't help but feel jealous. What can't be much worse than him? Is he that good? Just a nasty bastard who got shit luck. It's really disgusting that Lord Yi is still so concerned about him. Do not. In the final analysis, I have to become stronger myself and replace that hated guy's position in Lord Yi's heart. Broken Bee thought to herself. Well, by the way, Broken Bee, after all, you and Naruto have worked together for a while. Although he has become the captain of the 10th division, he has to keep in touch with him in the future. He still has a lot of you to learn from. Where's the place? Yi Yi said again. Broken Bee was immediately stimulated again, slightly raised his mouth, and looked reluctant. However, when she saw Yi Yi's soft eyes, she couldn't help but nodded yuhi. As long as Yi Yi is happy, she will do whatever she wants. At this time, in the 10th division team building, Naruto was orderly arranging the team affairs. He called all the team members and concentrated in the hall. The vacancy of the captain's position before the 10th division was due to the lack of qualified personnel for a while. Although there were several officers who were already shikai in the team, none of them had the talent to serve as captains. Therefore, the appearance of Naruto gave Captain Yamamoto hope. Although he was only shikai, his basic abilities were already very strong, even surpassing that of ordinary captains. He is competent enough. Captain Kurosaki Yiksen. Although he was young, he also had good strength. It's not Naruto's turn. Looking at the team members standing in a row in front of him, Naruto had a faint smile on his face. Beside him was Vice Captain Isshin Kurosaki, who was introducing Naruto to the situation in the team. The 10th division, as a patrol and guard team, usually not only has to pay attention to the situation of the whole soul world, but also the virtual circle and the situation in the world. Once there is a problem, report it to the team immediately and send someone to deal with it. However, the current 10th team's team affairs, because there is no strong captain-level figure, can't play a real role in many things. Therefore, when Naruto takes office, he also has a heavy responsibility on his shoulders. Looking at the group of Shinigami who were still skeptical and unbelieving, Naruto didn't bother to justify anything for the time being. After all, he just took office and he didn't have any outstanding performance, so how could he be able to convince everyone? If you want to be recognized by the team members, you must first do some deeds. Therefore, although everyone has a very skeptical attitude towards him now, he will never affect his state of mind because of this. For him, as long as he does his own thing well, he will naturally let everyone see himself. Ability. Moreover, his focus is not on this. Being the captain is at best just providing space for him to better settle down. Only in this way can he cultivate stronger power. Of course, although he does not necessarily want the 10th team to shine in Jingling Court, he will never allow his team members to be bullied and underestimated by others. If anyone dares to provoke, he will definitely stand up and be ruthless. Take a lesson. 1057. Feijun's dedication. After Naruto had dealt with the 10th division for a few days, he had basically settled down. These days, the captains and vice-captains of other teams have also come to congratulate Naruto on his new appointment. Captain Yamamoto also came over to have a good talk with him about the history, development, and future of the Soul Society. Although Naruto thought he was very wordy about this, as the captain, he still had to give him face, and it can be said that he is equivalent to being promoted by himself. After Captain Yamamoto came, Hirako Mako, Urahara Kazuki, Yoichi and others also came to visit and brought many small gifts. Especially Urahara Kazuki, the gizmo that he sent over is very good. On this day, Naruto finally waited for the captain of the 4th division, Uno Hanaritsu, to arrive. The two sat in the house, drinking tea. Captain Ujiwa, how is Feijun's situation now? Naruto asked her straight to the point. It had been almost 10 days since the incident at that time. He also asked Ujiwa Liejun about Feijun, but she always said that the spiritual power in Feijun was balancing yin and yang, not all at once. You can get used to it completely, so it will take a while. And today, Ujiwali came to visit, and Naruto couldn't help but ask her. Ujiwali covered her mouth and smiled softly, teasing, Captain Naruto, you really care about Faye. This is the same as what she kept asking me about you. She is fine now and has fully recovered. It's here. Really? That's great. She won't have to suffer that kind of pain in the future. Naruto said with joy. Ujiwali laughed, and she clapped her hands. I didn't have any gifts for you when I came here today, but looking at you, luckily I brought Feijun. Following Unahakali's words, a figure walked in from outside. The figure looks weak, but the look on his face is yuhi moist, with a crystal luster. Lord Naruto. With a soft cry, tears suddenly welled up in Feijun's eyes, and then, regardless of Maujawali's presence, she rushed directly into his arms. Naruto stretched out his hand to catch her, hugged her in his arms, and said with a slight smile, Really, Feijun, what are you doing so excited, and crying? Helping her wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes, Naruto showed a gentle look on his face. Is your body okay? Yeah. Feijun nodded, yuhi dazed and said, thanks to Captain Unoka for taking care of us these days. It's not in the way, it's not in the way. Maujawali smiled slightly. Suddenly, Feijun hugged Naruto's jade arm tightly, and suddenly burst into tears. Ooh, Naruto-sama, Captain Ujiwa has already told me everything you did for me. Ah, woohoo, why are you being so nice to me? Naruto was stunned for a moment, watching Heijen's tears dripping down. He couldn't help but look at Ujiwali in doubt. Ujiwali smiled secretly and said, Naruto, forgive me for my mistake. I accidentally slipped my tongue on this matter, so I told Heijen the whole story. Naruto was stunned when he heard the words. No wonder Feijun was so excited. However, he didn't believe that Maujawali would leak his mouth. This woman looks so gentle on the outside, but she is a bit naughty and black on the inside. It's a really distressing character. Alright, Captain Naruto, I won't disturb the relationship between the two of you, so I'll say goodbye. Ujiwali suddenly stood up and smiled. Then, before Naruto could save her, she had already retreated. When Feijun saw her leaving, she hurriedly stood up and said, Captain Unohana, I'll see you off. She has been taken care of by Unohana Lai these days, and she is very grateful to her. However, Ujiwali stopped her from doing so, and after whispering a few words in her ear, she walked away. Yuhi stood there with a jade face that rose, completely forgetting to react. Looking at her reaction, Naruto couldn't help but be very puzzled. He didn't know what exactly did Usually tell her. That night, Naruto returned to the room after finishing the teamwork. Feijun was temporarily living in the 10th division, and Naruto planned to let her cultivate for a few days before arranging to study at the True Central Spiritual Arts Academy. Lord Naruto, can I come in? Just as Naruto was about to go to bed, there was a sudden knock on the door by Feijun. Naruto had to get up and open the door. Feijun was only wearing a thin pajamas, her black hair fell on her shoulders, and her big eyes shone with a charming light. She was looking at Naruto eagerly. Naruto quickly let her into the house. Feijun, it's so late, what's the matter? Asked Naruto, who made her sit on the couch and planned to pour water for her, but was stopped by her. Naruto-sama, I can't sleep. Feijun lowered her head and said softly. Naruto can't help but stunned, can't sleep. Do you come to find yourself when you can't sleep? Looking at her thin body and her slightly wet hair, her heart suddenly jumped. Looks like she just got out of the shower. Taking a breath, Naruto immediately smelled a delicate fragrance of a girl. Looking carefully at her jade-like profile, it seemed to be dyed with a layer of Yuhisha. Naruto's heart suddenly warmed. At this moment, Feijun suddenly turned her head, raised her jade face and looked at Naruto's eyes pitifully and said, Lord Naruto, please allow me to sleep with you. I can only feel at ease when Lord Naruto is by my side. Sleep. Hearing Feijun's words, why didn't Naruto understand what Feijun meant? He immediately stretched his arms around Feijun's slender waist and said with a chuckle, Feijun, if you sleep with me, it will be dangerous. Feijun was stunned for a moment, feeling the feeling of Lord Naruto's fiery palm pressing against her waist. She lowered her head slightly, and said shyly, Lord Naruto is not a monster, how could it be dangerous? Besides, and Naruto-sama, I'm willing to do whatever you want. Boom. Feijun's words suddenly acted like a catalyst, causing Naruto's heart to burst into flames, and he immediately put Feijun in his arms, bowed his head, and opened his mouth to cover her soft little mouth. With a wave of his hand, the lights in the room went out, and in the gloom, Naruto pressed her on the bed. Lord Naruto. 1058. Secret. After a long and happy moan, there were bursts of ups and downs in the room, like weeping. It didn't take long for Feijun to hear a pleasing screeching sound. There seemed to be 2 flames burning in the room. Early the next morning, Naruto opened his eyes and found that Feijun was still lying in his arms. Her jade arms were still holding her hands tightly, and their lower bodies were still tightly connected. Naruto-sama. Feijun opened her eyes faintly, saw Yuhi looking at him with a dazed face and asked, is it done? Yeah, it's done, you slept little last night, you should continue to sleep. Naruto said with a smile. He gently pulled away from Feijun's body and made her lie on his chest in a different position. Feijun let out a soft moan, a wave of Yuhi appeared on her face, closed her beautiful eyes, and quietly enjoyed the tranquility of this moment. She dazzled Yuhi with a satisfied and happy smile on her face. At this moment, she was like a dream. She never thought that she would become the woman of Naruto-sama, and she suddenly experienced such a wonderful feeling. She thought that with her own qualifications, it would be difficult to catch up with Naruto-sama in this life, but she didn't expect it to be like this. When she learned from Captain Unohana that Naruto-sama had suffered so much for her sake, her heart was hurt and moved. Fortunately, she later learned that Naruto-sama was not in serious trouble, but his strength soared, which made her feel a little more at ease. Despite this, she still felt that she would not be able to repay Naruto-sama's kindness even if she was smashed to pieces. The only thing she could do at the moment was to dedicate her body to him, even if it could give him a little joy. She felt very happy. Naruto looked at Yuhi's face and closed his eyes. He couldn't help but think of the madness last night. This girl seemed to be draining her body last night, and kept asking for it, even though she was made to have high tides. But still trying to endure. In the end, Naruto was afraid of breaking her, so he stopped scolding her. At this time, she was leaning on her body, her jade face after being moisturized was radiant, and that dizzy Yuhi was more like the sunrise on the horizon. It was simply beautiful. Unable to bear, Naruto gently kissed her soft lips. Feijun opened her eyes at once, feeling Naruto's love for her, and was extremely happy in her heart. She stretched out her hand, suddenly grabbed the giant object under Naruto, and said with a smile, "Sir Naruto, you are here. It's so refreshing in the morning." Naruto was held by her, his body trembled slightly, and he said with a wry smile, "I can't take it anymore if you are like this." Unexpectedly, Feijun laughed. "It's okay, as long as Naruto likes, I can do anything." She suddenly moved between Naruto's legs, opened her small mouth and aimed at Naruto and swallowed it, and she actually started to swallow. "Oh, Hikaru." Naruto couldn't help but let out a soft whistle. The warm and moist mouth brought him an unusually warm and moist feeling. He gently pressed her head with both hands and gently, moving body. Feijun felt Naruto's excitement, and was eating him even more. Seeing her lustful and slutty appearance, Naruto couldn't help but ask curiously, "Hyjin, what did Captain Unohana say in your ear yesterday? Why did you have such a Yuhi face all of a sudden, and you came to me at night? Where's the room?" Feijun lifted Yuhi's face and smiled. "This is a secret, Captain Unohana won't allow me to tell you." Naruto was even more strange, but Feijun lowered his head and started eating harder. Naruto didn't have time to ask questions, and enjoyed the incomparable comfort at the moment. After a while, Naruto spurted out, and all the essence of life entered her small mouth. Feijun frowned at the fishy smell, but she swallowed it in the end, with a happy and contented look on her face. "Get up, get dressed, wash up." After Naruto finished all of this, he looked at Feijun, who was still lying on the bed sheet panting slightly, and said softly, "Thank you for your hard work, Feijun, you should rest in your room today." Just now, he did it with her again, and sent her to the top 3 times before giving up. This morning, after exercising, Naruto was even more ferocious and invigorating. Afterwards, he went to deal with the squad team, and then went to the Junyang Spiritual Arts Academy to communicate with the academy about Feijun's curriculum arrangement. Last night, in the process of making love with Hyjin, Naruto had already understood some of the conditions in her body. After her spiritual power was balanced, her previous weakness had completely disappeared, and instead, an unprecedented strength erupted. All of a sudden, Feijun's spiritual power jumped directly to the level of a vice captain. Among them, Naruto's pure young spiritual power played a key role. Feijun, who has integrated Naruto's spiritual power, how can the spiritual power in his body not be strong at this time? Therefore, in the near future, Naruto intends to directly arrange Feijun in the Class A class and become Luanju's classmate, so that the two can take care of each other. In his current position as the captain of the 10th Division, it was very easy to arrange a student in the academy. After dealing with this matter, Naruto went to see the progress of the chrysanthemum. Her strength is progressing in an orderly manner. Although her spiritual power is not very strong, she is excellent in all aspects, and she also belongs to the top 10 in the class. Brother Naruto. Seeing Naruto coming over, the little face became excited, and she quickly jumped into his arms and shouted, "Brother Naruto, you have become the captain. It's amazing." Naruto smiled slightly, touched her head and said, "Ranju, you have to work hard. After a while, I can let you join my team and become an official death god." Hearing this, Luanju was overjoyed. "Really? Can I join Brother Naruto's squad?" "Of course, Luanju, you are very good. When you grow up, it is possible to be my vice captain." "Well, then I have to practice harder." Luanju shouted firmly. "Next is the ghost class. I'll go to practice now." After saying that, she ran out excitedly. Looking at her active figure, Naruto's face was full of smiles. 1059. 3 years. After returning to the team building, Naruto began to practice. After becoming the captain, with his current power, he can get more resources in Jingling Court, which is one of his goals. Just got a full-sex shikai, of course he has to take the time to break in, to train. There are also more techniques to learn from the Soul Society, to cut fists and walk away ghosts. After all, what you can learn in the academy is limited, and many more advanced skills must be discovered from other aspects. The best way is to study the various classics of Jingling Court in the Soul World, and find out some important things about spiritual power cultivation. It is necessary to collect data. Naruto is now the captain of the 10th Division and has the ability to do so. However, now he still lacks some cronies, and it is not good to always do everything by himself. In the 10th team, it is impossible to find such talents for a while, so the most reliable thing at present is to find talents by yourself. He thought of Mebus, the playful girl who had crossed over with him. Now he doesn't know where he went. If he could find her, wouldn't it be better for the two to develop together in Jingling Court? However, he had used some of the power in his hand to send someone to pay attention to her news before, but there is still no news until now. Almost the entire Liuhun Street has been searched, and this girl seems to have disappeared. A month has passed. Naruto finally came out of retreat and practiced. He fully mastered his Shikai power and developed some new abilities of Uzumaki. Of course, this month, Feijun also returned to the True Central Spiritual Arts Academy, and under Naruto's relationship, he entered Class A to study. Silver, Kuchiki Byakuya and others went in to study with her. These are very good people. Of course Naruto knew that Ichimaru, Silver and Byakuya were both future captains, but he ignored them for the time being and let them develop. Anyway, what he wanted to pursue was a more powerful force, and it could be said that it had nothing to do with them at all. And Feijun would always write to him these days, in which she told how she missed her, even if it was only a short distance away. Without Naruto by her side, she would still feel lonely and uneasy. Naruto had no choice but to comfort Feijun's reliance, and promised that she would take more time to visit her and Ranju in the academy in the future, and encouraged her to practice more, become a qualified death god, and then enter the 10th division. On this day, after Naruto finished his teamwork and finished his training, he came to see the two of them at the True Central Spiritual Arts Academy. Along the way, as the captain of the 10th division, countless death gods and students greeted him. Naruto couldn't help sighing secretly. A few months ago, he was still an unknown boy, and entering this Jingling Court was all based on Yi Yi's guarantee and trust. But now, as soon as he turned around, he was already a captain admired by thousands of people. The contrast was so great that it became a legend in the entire Jingling Court. Countless people were talking about Naruto, the newly promoted captain, and countless people admired him for becoming the captain so quickly. At the True Spiritual Academy, Naruto stopped at the door of a classroom. The bell rang for the end of get out of class, and several figures ran out from inside. It is Feijun and Ranju. Both had surprises on their faces. They all threw themselves into Naruto's arms, hugged his arms from left to right, and told him how much they missed him. Naruto smiled. How are you two practicing? I'm not here today just to see you, and your cultivation must not be left behind. Yeah, we are all working hard. Brother Naruto, my spiritual pressure is already very strong now. Ranju shouted, and I have also learned a lot of ghost ways. What about you, Feijun? Naruto turned to look at Feijun. That, I'm not very skilled, she said with a slight face. Yuhi. All day long, all she thinks about is the figure of Lord Naruto. How can she cultivate well? Compared with Ranju, she who has just become a Naruto woman has a deep taste in her heart, and Tenten is looking forward to getting along with Naruto-sama day and night. It seems that you really want to be punished. After school today, the 10th division. Naruto looked at her and smiled. Naruto brother, how will you punish Sister Feijun? Please don't be too harsh. Sister Feijun is actually working very hard. Luanju took his hand and shook it. People could not help but laugh secretly. Feijun was Yuhi's face, and her jade face was like a scorching sun. That night, Feijun came to the 10th team. As soon as he entered the house, he was hugged by Naruto. Then the two entered into a tangle. After a lively battle, Naruto hugged Feijun's delicate body and looked at her full face, Yuhi, and couldn't help but say, Feijun, your spiritual power is already strong enough. After you systematically study the knowledge of the academy, I can arrange you here. I am also very short of manpower here. I hope you can share some things for me. Hearing that, Heijun looked at Naruto and nodded and said, well, it's my honor to share the worries of Naruto-sama. I will definitely learn the knowledge as soon as possible, and then come to your side to help you. Well, after a while, let's arrange Luanju too, and we can work together in the future. Naruto smiled and kissed her. Feijun closed her beautiful eyes with a look of anticipation on her face. A year later, Feijun successfully graduated from the academy and entered the 10th team. 2 years later, Luanju also graduated and also entered the 10th division. 3 years. The 10th team, under the leadership of Naruto, although the 10th team did not have much achievements, they were also conscientious and did not make any mistakes. The only thing Naruto cared about was Aizen's actions. In the past 3 years, there have been some cases of missing souls from the Soul Street in the Soul Society. Every time I go to investigate, I can't find out why. Although Jinglingting understood that this was man-made, no one could find out the real culprit behind it. Naruto knew that all this was done by Aizen. But he is also very clear that Aizen's strength is already unfathomable, and it is better not to alarm him at present. Therefore, Naruto has been practicing hard for 3 years, and his spiritual power has become strong enough, more than twice as strong as 3 years ago. However, after 3 years, he still failed to reach the solution. Moreover, more importantly, now that he found that his spiritual power had entered a bottleneck period, it was difficult for him to go further. In this way, is it appropriate to comprehend stronger power? 1060, The Breath of Mebus. In the second squad, Yi is doing Shunpo training with Broken Bee. In the past 3 years, Broken Bee has grown very well, and in the past 3 years, the vice captain Ometi and Shiji has retired, and Broken Bee has become the vice captain. The two of them finished their training in Shunbu, wiped their sweaty body with a towel, and returned to the room to change into their clothes. Bro, your Shunpo speed is already very fast, and it is about to reach the level of Naruto back then. Yi said with a smile. Broken Bee nodded, and she was very happy to be praised by Lord Yi, but now she is only at the same level as Naruto Uzumaki back then, which made her very unconvinced. But Naruto has made great progress in the past 3 years. If he hadn't understood the solution, he would have surpassed me by a long time. Yi murmured again. Cheeks slightly, looking at Yi Da's mouth and talking about Uzumaki Naruto again. Her heart was full of jealousy. She looked at Yi with a serious face and said, Yi Da, I will definitely surpass Uzumaki Naruto. One day we must defeat him. When Yi heard it, she couldn't help laughing, rubbed her head and said, it's good to have such an idea, but this is very difficult. Just talking is not enough, you have to work hard. Yeah, I see. I will definitely practice harder. Broken Bee's eyes lit up with fighting spirit. In 3 years, after Naruto left the second division, Broken Bee finally reached the position of vice captain with her own efforts, which brought her one step closer to Yaiki, and she still hated Naruto very much. Treats him like a rival in love. Every time she takes her to visit the 10th division at night, she always has a cold face and a very unhappy look. And when she saw Naruto and Gai talking, laughing, or joking, she would always feel a burst of anger in her heart. What's so great? Do you get carried away when you become the captain? At the beginning, it wasn't because of the help of Lord Yi that we achieved our current achievements. To be so disrespectful to Lord Yi. Sooner or later I will surpass you. Lord Yi is mine alone. In Broken Bee's heart, this belief is even stronger. Captain Naruto, there is a situation. In the 10th squad, Naruto was explaining the skills of ghosts with Feijun and Luanju. Suddenly, a familiar spiritual pressure came from the air. Naruto's body shook slightly, and his face suddenly showed joy. At this time, a patrol member just happened to run in and announced loudly, "There is an abnormal spiritual pressure in the west area of Jingling Court." "Well, I see." Naruto nodded and said to Feijun and Luanju, "You guys are staying in the team building, I'll go check the situation." After speaking, his figure disappeared in a flash, and he rushed out of the team building. Along the way, Naruto couldn't help being pleasantly surprised when he felt the familiar Reiatsu. Correct. This familiar Reiatsu is the first-generation Mebus that I have been looking for more than 3 years. Has this girl finally appeared? Really good. I don't know what this girl has done in the past 3 years, this spiritual pressure is so strong. It's getting close to you. Sudden. Naruto frowned again. No. This spiritual pressure seems to be a bit abnormal. What happened to her in the first generation? At this moment, Naruto felt the change in this spiritual force. He couldn't help but muttered, and immediately quickened his pace, speeding up the speed. Raised to the fastest, the figure almost turned into a streamer, rushing to the place where the first generation was. At this time, at the entrance of the west gate of Jingling Court, the guards here have been defeated and lay dying on the ground. Countless Death God team members poured into this area. What happened? Naruto suddenly appeared in the crowd, grabbing a Death God and asking. When the other party saw that it was the captain of the 10th Division, he immediately bowed his head respectfully and replied, "There is a big phantom in front of us that is destroying the Jingling Court. It can release various abilities of water, fire, thunder and lightning. It is simply a monster." Naruto's brows were even more wrinkled, and he hurriedly rushed to the west gate in front of him. In a blink of an eye, the west gate is already in front of you. I saw that the defensive wall at the door had been blasted. Countless gods of death were all forced to dare not step forward. And among the ruins, a figure stood there. It is small and exquisite, but the whole body is covered by a layer of black and white bone, and it is completely impossible to see its internal shape. Even Naruto can only judge from this spiritual pressure that this is the original Mebus. However, at this time, there was a lot of confusion in her spiritual pressure, even with an empty spiritual pressure. Virtualize. Such a word immediately popped out of Naruto's mind. The first generation of Mebus was actually virtualized. What exactly is going on? He hurriedly stepped forward, blocked all the Death God team members behind him, and shouted, "Everyone back up. I'll solve it here." Yes, it's the captain of the 10th Division, Naruto-sama. Since it's Naruto-sama's order, let's withdraw first. Numerous Reaper team members quickly retreated a large distance and looked at Naruto from a distance. At the same time, not far ahead, the figure who was wreaking havoc on the surrounding buildings seemed to be focusing on Naruto. Dark gray pupils, swirling long hair, and the whole body covered with that layer of bone shell, as well as the devilish mask on his face. All of this made Naruto even more convinced that this was a phantom. However, he couldn't understand what this was all about. After disappearing for 3 years, Mebus after reappearing, it would be such a scene. This is a big surprise. However, the most important thing now is to try to control her as much as possible, no matter what the hell is going on, save the first generation first. Just as Naruto was thinking about his coping strategy, Mebus suddenly raised his arm, and a green light condensed in his palm. Boom! In the next instant, the green light turned into a laser, and it shot towards Naruto's body fiercely. Flicker! Naruto wrinkled his brows and shouted in his mouth, "The 81 Binding Dao, Broken Sky." A rectangular transparent barrier appeared in front of Naruto. With a bang, the power of the virtual flash exploded, and a scorching wave of air rushed to the surroundings.